for you to be a part of our first opening day with me. And the first track, I appreciate you, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to share and collaborate with you. I'm going to ask if Pastor Daniel will get us started with an open word of prayer, and then we'll go further with our conversation and dialogue today. Pastor Daniel.
Let us pray. Our Father, our God, we come and we thank you, Lord, for just another day that you have just allowed all of us to see and be able to move, live, and have our being. We thank you, Father, for just this opportunity to gather in such a great place, Father, to be under such great leadership, Father. We thank you, Father, for just your mercy that you extend to all of us, Lord, to have the opportunity, Lord, to learn and glean from those who strive for excellence. Father, we pray that we would maximize all of our ministries, Father, just through the help and through the understanding of your word. And Father, we pray, God, right now that this time would be a blessed time. This time will be a time of enlightenment, instruction, as well as encouragement. We pray for our instructors, Lord, as lead and guide them through every step, Father, that you need to take it through, Lord, that we dig down in the deep treasures of your word, Father, to help us as we grow in ministry. And Father, if you do this, we definitely give you the praise and the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. What I want to do, is first of all, just kind of share with you what our session is going to be about today. One of the things that I believe is very, very important in terms of the health of the church is we talk about, Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Church, talks about the 5 purposes of the church, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Of course, the first purpose, he says, is the purpose of worship, that everything we do in ministry, in the preaching, teaching, outreach, arms of the church, everything ultimately is centered toward the worship of God, the glory to God. So even in the preaching moments, worship should be a priority. And so worship is important. The second purpose, he says, is the purpose of evangelism. Evangelism is key in terms of understanding what he's called us to do. It's important that we kind of really understand why we exist in order for our efforts to have more traction. So he says worship, evangelism. Third purpose, he said, was for fellowship. Very, very important. And then he said the other purpose was for discipleship and then ministry. And so those, according to Rick Warren, are the 5 major pillars of the church, 5 purposes of the church. Now, so in order for a church to be healthy, all those things need to be evident. One of the things I'm noticing now, probably over the past decade or so, is preaching has become secondary in a lot of instances toward the upper mobility of the church. What you discover is other things, ministry and activities and outreach, other things have really become more preeminent than preaching. It's possible for a church to do great things now and not have stellar preaching and teaching. But I believe that there's still an imbalance. And so what we want to look at is not just ministries and outreach and fundraisers, etc., but bringing back a healthy approach to preaching and teaching. We talk about how Christian education, Ann Wimbley used to say at ITC, is that ministry that undergirds every other ministry of the church. And so while even the Christian education components of the church should go hand in hand with the preaching and teaching ministry. And so I think a lot of us, because we preach regularly, particularly those who are pastors, how many of you are preaching pastors, okay? What can happen over a period of time is you can kind of lose your mojo and your creative edge. Because we have a gift, and sometimes because we, have developed our own way in many instances, sometimes you lose that sharpness. And so you just need to be sharpened again to recreate that passion. Because what can happen a lot of times, and I got to be honest, is that sometimes, even sermon prep can become so routine because it's something you just do all the time. And it's like it becomes more vocational than enjoyable and inspirational. And so you lose that freshness. And so sometimes you just need that to be re-energized in terms of preaching and teaching. And so that's why we put a couple of tracks in this session, in our conference this time, on homiletics. And so we're going to start off today. Teresa Fry Brown is going to be on tomorrow. It would do you well if you've not, of those who do want that. you do have an interest and want to be equipped more in preaching, it would do you well to take her course, and as well as Dr. Carolyn Knight. She'll be here tomorrow as well. Now, what I want to do today, we're going to take a look at a book that I found very, very interesting. I think it's very, very powerful. This book, along with Kenyatta Gilbert's book. Kenyatta Gilbert is the dean of Washington, one of the deans up at Howard University Divinity Center. This book, along with Kenyatta's book, have been probably the most impactful books for me over the past couple of years on preaching. Kenyatta Gilbert and this book. This book is by Eugene Lowry. It's entitled The Homiletical Plot. The Homiletical Plot. Very, very concise and easy to read, but it's extremely motivational in terms of kind of helping you to sharpen your lens and get a little more focus. So this book, and I'll talk more about it. Eugene Lowry, The Homiletical Plot. Now, what I want to do is there's an outline in your book. All the notes should be in your book today. I don't know what page it's on, if those who don't have 215. 215. So if you go to page 215, you will see the outline that we put together for you. We're going to defer and deviate. Now, I'm standing here as our facilitator. By no means am I some expert, some great practitioner of this. It's just through my own studies and my own passion. So when you feel the need to insert something or add something to the conversation, please feel free to do that. I'm just going to simply share what I feel and some of the things that we work on in terms of our craft. This is my 24th year of public preaching. I was called to preach at age 13, and my dad let me preach my first sermon at 17. So I've been doing this and listening to this all my life. But public preaching 24 years, and I pastored 22 years. And so this is kind of some of the best practices along with what I see in this book and some other things we're going to allude to. What I want to begin with, go to point 3 on your outline, because I want to deal with the book first. I'm looking this morning, I want to back up, kind of deal with some general stages of sermon prep to make sure that we're on the same page, and then we'll move into that, the first part of the outline. The first part I want to talk about is the preparation of the sermon, and point 1A here is consecration. Here, this is a missing dynamic. I admit this not very proudly, but I admit that sometimes, if you're not careful, you can write the sermon simply because it's your job. And Sunday morning, you got to preach. And so I'm not preparing on Sunday from a place of, God, what do you want me to say? I'm preparing this message because I got to preach Sunday. I got to preach Sunday. I got to preach Sunday. I've been busy all week. Football season is starting. I watch football all day long. And you'll find yourself sometimes on Saturday afternoon, you spent more time in college football than you have really getting your mind ready for preaching. Because sometimes when you go to pastoring, you know, I tease my wife all the time. Before I got married, I was an avid reader. I would read 5 books a week. I was a voracious reader. But wife and kids have really, I tell them all the time, you have interfered with my relationship with God. No wonder Paul says it's better for a man to not be married if he's going to commit himself to ministry. And so what happens is, well, I've even found myself at times reading and studying, not to spend time with God, but just to get the sermon. And so Bible reading is no longer from a devotional place, or often from a self-development in me and God. If I'm reading the scriptures to get a sermon, that's not quality time with God. That's my work. And I think sometimes what happens, we become so rigid that the only time we pick up the sword is when we're trying to see what we're going to say next Sunday. And you can get away with it because that's power in the Word. And the Word's going to do it with or without us. You know, God says, Jeremiah, I'm going to hasten my Word to perform it. So it won't be your antics or your gifts. You're going to build up, plant, tear down, uproot, he says in Jeremiah 1. But I'm going to hasten, I'm going to quicken my Word to do it. So even with an unconsecrated deliverer of the Word, there's so much power in the Word that God can do it, because it's going to stand when our gifts don't. And so you can be effective, you know, for a while, preaching that way and teaching that way. But to have the power and the transformation that you really need, we got to find a way to have more consecration. And that means I got to prepare myself. You know, I got to exegete who I am. I've got to become, where am I right now? Because I'll be honest, that sometimes that if we be honest with ourselves, we're really not in a good spiritual place to be preaching to nobody. If we really look deep within ourselves, but because we got to make payroll, because the lights got to be paid, we find ourselves going through it, and we're really not in that place. And so, what I want to pray for all of us, encourage all of us, because it happens to all of us. We've got to find a way to get back to our own personal consecration and time with the Lord. You know, we can do it. We can prepare ourselves to get our haircuts each week. Some of us get manicured each week. We take our clothes to the cleaners. We take some female preachers. You get your hair done. Your hosiery. You go through all that to prepare for the preaching moment. But the problem is when you think about what you're going to wear next week, but you hadn't spent the time with God to say, where am I right now, God? What's happening in the life of the church? And what is it that you want me to say? Because what can happen if you don't get to this point, you find yourself just preaching robotically each week because it's your job, and you lose your passion, you lose your zest, and inevitably you get disconnected from God, and you're just going through the motion. And that's a painful, but it's a very real place to be, and you're on your way to burnout. And when you get in that moment, your spirit, you're susceptible to all types of demonic things, moral failures, because you're really disconnected from the power source. And you become more dependent upon your eye for exegesis and the fact that you know how to write a sermon. So it's almost like going to the barbershop. They don't have to pray to cut hair. It's my craft. You know, a plumber doesn't have to pray about which pipes to put in. They know, you've been doing it so long, you know what to do. You know which button to push. You know how to get a response. You got the charisma, and so you think you've been effective. But at the end of the day, you're really just operating out of gift and no place of consecration. And I think that's because what I've discovered, some of the people who are not the best exegetes, you know, don't have all the bells and whistles in terms of hermeneutical accuracy and homiletical attractiveness, you know, don't have a voice, the riffs or runs, but the power comes out of personal experience. It's that overflow. You know, you can dot every I and cross every T homiletically and still die because you have not had that personal consecration. And so I think that's one of the things I really want to convey to us before we get into the nuts and bolts of sermon prep, which I think are vitally important. At the same time, where are you in terms of your weekly time with God? In terms of getting yourself ready to deliver the word. I see your hand, brother. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that could be painful.
Yeah.
It becomes just a function.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate in terms of the type of pain? I don't
Right.
want you to divulge.
Right.
In that person.
Right.
From your experience, I know that I feel bad with God.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Right.
I feel convicted.
Right. Because we get up and say, we get up and you find yourself lying to the people. You know, God gave me this revelation. No, stop lying. You just turn to the Bible or listen to some on TV and went on the internet and downloaded it. That wasn't revelation. Yeah, it's different between divine intervention and human experiences on the internet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing it, I become very perfunctory. And then what happens, those of us who start preaching revivals, you know, and you start traveling the road, it's possible to lose God in that too. Because what you do is you reach back and every preacher got some sticks. Every preacher. Every preacher got three, at least, every successful preacher at least has 3 or 4 horses, my daddy calls them, that you can ride anytime. Am I right or am I wrong? You know, no matter what situation you're in, you can pull back on that horse. So the dependence is not on God again. It's I've tried this horse, I rode this horse, and I know this horse can ride. Right? So you can golf all day, you can go to the mall, because your dependence is, at the end of the day, I got this horse in my back pocket. I know it, I've twisted, I've turned it. And then what happens is, because the people respond to it, we think God's got me. You know what I mean? But it's still not connection with God. It's reliance upon gift and what you prepared. And you ain't fresh no more. And so when you start getting the family and the other duties of pastoring, and so I think it's important, in order to have this personal consecration, something that we do in ministry, and it depends on which level, because all of us are at different places in ministry. Some of us at that place where you got to do it all. And when I got started pastoring, I was a piano player, I was a choir director, I was a custodian, I cut the grass, I did it all. Right? And so and I was in school. So having those, depending upon what you are, some people are bivocational, you got to find a way to clear some time where it becomes a habit for you. You know, I'm trying to get back in, you know, you might not believe this, but I was a very gifted athlete 20 years ago. You know, and I worked out and ran, and, you know, I'm trying to get myself back in shape. But a lot of us go to the gym and we walk and we take care of our physical selves. But what about that spirit part in terms of, so preaching is very different, because if I'm myself, if I'm not in a place of consecration, and I know when I'm in that place, because sometimes what happens to me in service, it's happened to me a couple times, and that's what makes me know I'm on the right track, you know, or I'm getting back where I need to be, where Sunday I may have a message that I prepared, right? And yet God does something different in the service. And what I prepared doesn't fit what God is saying. I see God shifting. So, because I've been where I need to be with God in personal devotion, what I've had to have to do 2 or 3 times this year alone, where I had to go to the pulpit totally not dependent on everything I studied, and right at the moment, which I don't recommend this, but right at the spur of the moment, I shift with God, and God give me a whole nother direction, and I don't know where I'm going, but because I spent some time in consecration with God, and so what I find myself doing those moments, preaching out of my overflow, not even what I prepared, but God has taken me to a place personally with Him. And to be honest with you, what has done this for me the last 3 years being in this place, one of the worst things that can happen to you is when you are stable, having money, and having a measure of success when you're comfortable. Comfort is an enemy to consecration. And so, but when you're out there on faith, and you need God to do it, that's the moment where I know I'm back connected. I'm spending that time, and now I'm open, and I think that's when the blessings of God begin to pour. And what I've noticed this year in my own preaching time here at our church is the moments when I yielded to God and had those moments of consecration. Those are the moments where the service just was absolutely at a whole nother place, and where it touched people, and you see them responding in invitation. So that's why I want to encourage us, you know, don't get so perfunctory and vocational that you do it out of your gift, out of your studies, that you have not had a time in that moment of consecration with God. God even revealed the preacher what you're supposed to say, what the needs are. Okay? Because sometimes we preach what we want, but it's like, God, what is it that this body needs? And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So I'm coming from a very painful place, brother, because what happens is I'm preaching, and I know I'm doing it, and we measured on killing the house. That's the guy said, I can't stand. I kill them. That's the problem. We're too busy killing them and not giving them life. You know what I mean? So for me, it is in that private time, knowing that I'm convicted, because I haven't been with God. I'm disconnected from the source. Yes, sir.
Private time always have to be at the desk.
I can't stay at the office. The only time I can stay at the office is if somebody picks me up and brings me up. People don't know I'm here. I don't do well studying in the office. Most
In terms of
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's through that consecration when those term and concepts. I think every preacher needs to have your own sermon notebook? You know, one of my things, whenever I go to a hotel, I get the notepads. Because I believe when you're spending time, I call myself, and I want to encourage us all to be what I call homiletical pantheist. Pantheism is the belief that God is in everything. I believe we should be homiletical pantheist, meaning that everything is a sermon. That every time I'm walking, I'm waiting on God to give me. You can get illustrations in anything. So as I'm consecrating with God, and God, give me what you want me to say, that God can give you sermon and thoughts, and God can drop revelation on you in a commercial, in a billboard. Now, my father and my grandfather, their study habits, they always felt that your sermon thoughts came from the text. That it is engaging the text itself that my sermon thoughts are always. For you to be a part of our first opening day with me and the first track, I appreciate you, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to share and collaborate with you. I'm going to ask if Pastor Daniel will get us started with an opening word of prayer, and then we'll go further with our conversation and dialogue today. Pastor Daniel.
Let's pray. Our Father, our God, we come and we thank you, Lord, for just another day that you have just allowed all of us to see and be able to move, live, and have our being. We thank you, Father, for just this opportunity to gather in such a great place, Father, to be under such great leadership, Father. We thank you, Father, for just your mercy that you extend to all of us, Lord, to have the opportunity, Lord, to learn and glean from those who strive for excellence. Father, we pray that we would maximize all of our ministries, Father, just through the help and through the understanding of your word. And Father, we pray, God, right now that this time would be a blessed time. This time would be a time of enlightenment, instruction, as well as encouragement. We pray for our instructors, Lord, as lead and guide them through every step, Father, that you need to take it through, Lord, that it dig down in the deep treasures of your word, Father, to help us as we grow in ministry. And Father, if you do this, we definitely give you the praise and the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. What I want to do, is first of all, just kind of share with you what our session is going to be about today. One of the things that I believe is very, very important in terms of the health of the church is we talk about, Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Church, talks about the 5 purposes of the church, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Of course, the first purpose, he says, is the purpose of worship, that everything we do in ministry, in the preaching, teaching, outreach, arms of the church, everything ultimately is centered toward the worship of God, the glory to God. So even in the preaching moments, worship should be a priority. And so worship is important. The second purpose, he says, is the purpose of evangelism. Evangelism is key in terms of understanding what he's called us to do. It's important that we kind of really understand why we exist in order for our efforts to have more traction. So he says worship, evangelism. Third purpose, he said, was for fellowship. Very, very important. And then he said the other purpose was for discipleship and then ministry. And so those, according to Rick Warren, are the 5 major pillars of the church, 5 purposes of the church. Now, so in order for a church to be healthy, all those things need to be evident. One of the things I'm noticing now, probably over the past decade or so, is preaching has become secondary in a lot of instances toward the upper mobility of the church. What you discover is other things, ministry and activities and outreach, other things have really become more preeminent than preaching. It's possible for a church to do great things now and not have stellar preaching and teaching. But I believe that there's still an imbalance. And so what we want to look at is not just ministries and outreach and fundraisers, etc., but bringing back a healthy approach to preaching and teaching. We talk about how Christian education, Ann Wimbley used to say at ITC, is that ministry that undergirds every other ministry of the church. And so while even the Christian education components of the church should go hand in hand with the preaching and teaching ministry. And so I think a lot of us, because we preach regularly, particularly those who are pastors, how many of you are preaching pastors, okay? What can happen over a period of time is you can kind of lose your mojo and your creative edge, because we have a gift, and sometimes because we, have developed our own way in many instances, sometimes you lose that sharpness. And so you just need to be sharpened again to recreate that passion, because what can happen a lot of times, and I got to be honest, is that sometimes even sermon prep can become so routine because it's something you just do all the time. And it's like it becomes more vocational than enjoyable and inspirational. And so you lose that freshness. And so sometimes you just need that to be re-energized in terms of preaching and teaching. And so that's why we put a couple of tracks in this session, in our conference this time, on homiletics. And so we're going to start off today. Teresa Fry Brown is going to be on tomorrow. It would do you well if you've not. Those who do want that, you do have an interest and want to be equipped more in preaching, it would do you well to take her course, and as well as Dr. Carolyn Knight, she'll be here tomorrow as well. Now, what I want to do today, we're going to take a look at a book that I found very, very interesting. I think it's very, very powerful. This book, along with Kenyatta Gilbert's book. Kenyatta Gilbert is the dean of Washington, one of the deans up at Howard University Divinity Center. This book, along with Kenyatta's book, have been probably the most impactful books for me over the past couple of years on preaching. Kenyatta Gilbert and this book. This book is by Eugene Lowry. It's entitled The Homiletical Plot. The Homiletical Plot. Very, very concise and easy to read, but it's extremely motivational in terms of kind of helping you to sharpen your lens and get a little more focus. So this book, and I'll talk more about it, Eugene Lowry, The Homiletical Plot. Now what I want to do is there's an outline in your book. All the notes should be in your book today. I don't know what page it's on, if those who don't have 215. 215. So if you go to page 215, you will see the outline that we put together for you. We're going to defer and deviate. Now, I'm standing here as our facilitator. By no means am I some expert, some great practitioner of this. It's just through my own studies and my own passion. So when you feel the need to insert something or add something to the conversation, please feel free to do that. I'm just going to simply share what I feel and some of the things that we work on in terms of our craft. This is my 24th year of public preaching. I was called to preach at age 13, and my dad let me preach my first sermon at 17. So I've been doing this and listening to this all my life. But public preaching 24 years, and I pastored 22 years. And so this is kind of some of the best practices along with what I see in this book and some other things we're going to allude to. What I want to begin with, go to point 3 on your outline, because I want to deal with the book first. I'm looking this morning, I want to back up, kind of deal with some general stages of sermon prep to make sure that we're on the same page, and then we'll move into that, the first part of the outline. The first part I want to talk about is the preparation of the sermon, and point 1A here is consecration. Here, this is a missing dynamic. I admit this not very proudly, but I admit that sometimes, if you're not careful, you can write the sermon simply because it's your job. And Sunday morning, you got to preach. And so I'm not preparing on Sunday from a place of, God, what do you want me to say? I'm preparing this message because I got to preach Sunday. I got to preach Sunday. I got to preach Sunday. I've been busy all week. Football season is starting. I watch football all day long. And you'll find yourself sometimes on Saturday afternoon, you spent more time in college football than you have really getting your mind ready for preaching. Because sometimes when you go to pastoring, I tease my wife all the time. Before I got married, I was an avid reader. I would read 5 books a week. I was a voracious reader. But wife and kids have really, I tell them all the time, you have interfered with my relationship with God. No wonder Paul says it's better for a man to not be married if he's going to commit himself to ministry. And so what happens is, I've even found myself at times reading and studying, not to spend time with God, but just to get the sermon. And so Bible reading is no longer from a devotional place, or often from a self-development in me and God. If I'm reading the scriptures to get a sermon, that's not quality time with God. That's my work. And I think sometimes what happens, we become so rigid that the only time we pick up the sword is when we're trying to see what we're going to say next Sunday. And you can get away with it because that's power in the Word. And the Word's going to do it with or without us. You know, God said, Jeremiah, I'm going to hasten my Word to perform it. So it won't be your antics or your gifts. You're going to build up, plant, tear down, uproot, he says in Jeremiah 1, but I'm going to hasten, I'm going to quicken my Word to do it. So even with an unconsecrated deliverer of the Word, there's so much power in the Word that God can do it, because it's going to stand when our gifts don't. And so you can be effective, you know, for a while, preaching that way and teaching that way. But to have the power and the transformation that you really need, we got to find a way to have more consecration. And that means I got to prepare myself. You know, I got to exegete who I am. I've got to become, where am I right now? Because I'll be honest, that sometimes that if we be honest with ourselves, we're really not in a good spiritual place to be preaching to nobody. If we really look deep within ourselves, but because we got to make payroll, because the lights got to be paid, we find ourselves going through it, and we're really not in that place. And so what I want to pray for all of us, encourage all of us, because it happens to all of us. We've got to find a way to get back to our own personal consecration and time with the Lord. You know, we can do it. We can prepare ourselves to get our haircuts each week. Some of us get manicured each week. We take our clothes to the cleaners. We take some female preachers. You get your hair done. Your hosiery. You go through all that to prepare for the preaching moment. But the problem is when you think about what you're going to wear next week, but you hadn't spent the time with God to say, where am I right now, God? What's happening in the life of the church? And what is it that you want me to say? Because what can happen if you don't get to this point, you find yourself just preaching robotically each week because it's your job, and you lose your passion, you lose your zest. And inevitably you get disconnected from God, and you're just going through the motion. And that's a painful, but it's a very real place to be, and you're on your way to burnout. And when you get in that moment, your spirit, you're susceptible to all types of demonic things, moral failures, because you're really disconnected from the power source. And you become more dependent upon your eye for exegesis and the fact that you know how to write a sermon. So it's almost like going to the barbershop. They don't have to pray to cut hair. It's my craft. You know, a plumber doesn't have to pray about which pipes to put in. They know, you've been doing it so long, you know what to do. You know which button to push. You know how to get a response. You got the charisma, and so you think you've been effective. But at the end of the day, you're really just operating out of gift and no place of consecration. And I think that's because what I've discovered, some of the people who are not the best exegetes, you know, don't have all the bells and whistles in terms of hermeneutical accuracy and homiletical attractiveness, you know, don't have a voice, the riffs or runs, but the power comes out of personal experience. It's that overflow. You know, you can dot every I and cross every T homiletically and still die because you have not had that personal consecration. And so I think that's one of the things I really want to convey to us before we get into the nuts and bolts of sermon prep, which I think are vitally important. At the same time, where are you in terms of your weekly time with God? In terms of getting yourself ready to deliver the word. I see your hand, brother. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that could be painful.
Yeah.
It becomes just a function.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate in terms of the type of pain?
Right. Right. Right.
From your experience, I know that I feel bad with God.
Right.
You understand what I mean?
Right.
I feel convicted.
Right. Because we get up and say, we get up and you find yourself lying to the people. You know, God gave me this revelation. No, stop lying. You just turn to the Bible or listen to something on TV and went on the internet and downloaded it. That wasn't revelation. Yeah, it's different between divine intervention and human experiences on the internet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing it, I become very perfunctory. And then what happens, those of us who start preaching revivals, you know, you start traveling the road, it's possible to lose God in that too. Because what you do is you reach back and every preacher got some sticks. Every preacher. Every preacher got every successful preacher at least has 3 or 4 horses, my daddy calls them, that you can ride anytime. Am I right? Am I wrong? You know, no matter what situation you're in, you can pull back on that horse. So the dependence is not on God again. It's I've tried this horse. I rode this horse. And I know this horse can ride. Right? So you can golf all day. You can go to the mall because your dependence is at the end of the day, I got this horse in my back pocket. I know it. I've twisted. I've turned it. And then what happens is because the people respond to it, we think God's got me. You know what I mean? But it's still not connection with God. It's reliance upon gift and what you prepared. And you ain't fresh no more. And so when you start getting the family and the other duties of pastoring, and so I think it's important, in order to have this personal consecration, some things that we do in ministry, and it depends on which level, because all of us are at different places in ministry. Some of us at that place where you got to do it all. And when I got started pastoring, I was a piano player, I was a choir director, I was a custodian, I cut the grass, I did it all. Right? And so and I was in school. So having those, depending upon what you are, some people are bivocational, you got to find a way to clear some time where it becomes a habit for you. You know, I'm trying to get back in, you know, you might not believe this, but I was a very gifted athlete 20 years ago. You know, and I worked out, and you know, I'm trying to get myself back in shape. But a lot of us go to the gym and we walk and we take care of our physical selves. But what about that spirit part in terms of, so preaching is very different, because if I'm not in a place of consecration, and I know when I'm in that place, because sometimes what happens to me in service, it's happened to me a couple times, and that's what makes me know I'm on the right track, you know, or I'm getting back where I need to be, where Sunday I may have a message that I prepared, right? And yet God does something different in the service. And what I prepared doesn't fit what God is saying. And I see God shifting. So, because I've been where I need to be with God in personal devotion, what I've had to have to do 2 or 3 times this year alone, where I had to go to the pulpit totally not dependent on everything I studied, and right at the moment, which I don't recommend this, but right at the spur of the moment, I shift with God. And God give me a whole other direction. And I don't know where I'm going. But because I spent some time in consecration with God. And so what I find myself doing those, I'm preaching out of my overflow. Not even what I prepared. But God has taken me to a place personally with Him. And to be honest with you, what has done this for me the last 3 years, being in this place. One of the worst things that can happen to you is when you are stable. Having money and having a measure of success when you're comfortable. Comfort is an enemy to consecration. And so, but when you're out there on faith and you need God to do it, that's the moment where I know I'm back connected. I'm spending that time. And now I'm open, and I think that's when the blessings of God begin to pour. And what I've noticed this year in my own preaching time here at our church is the moments when I yielded to God and had those moments of consecration. Those are the moments where the service just was absolutely at a whole nother place. And the way it touched people, and you see them responding in invitation. So that's why I want to encourage us, you know, don't get so perfunctory and vocational that you do it out of your gift, out of your studies, that you have not had a time in that moment of consecration with God. God even revealed the preacher what you're supposed to say, what the needs are. Okay? Because sometimes we preach what we want, but it's like, God, what is it that this body needs? And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So I'm coming from a very painful place, brother, because what happens is I'm preaching, and I know I'm doing it, and we measured on killing the house. That's what God said. I can't stand. I kill them. That's the problem. We're too busy killing them and not giving them life. You know what I mean? So for me, it is in that private time, knowing that I'm convicted because I haven't been with God. I'm disconnected from the source. Yes, sir.
Private time always have to be at the desk.
I can't stay at the office. The only time I can stay at the office is if somebody picks me up and rings me if people don't know I'm here. I don't do well staying in the office. Most
In terms of
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's through that consecration with those sermon concepts. I think every preacher needs to have your own sermon notebook. You know, one of my things, whenever I go to a hotel, I get the notepads. Because I believe when you're spending time, I call myself, and I want to encourage us all to be what I call homiletical pantheist. Pantheism is the belief that God is in everything. I believe we should be homiletical pantheist, meaning that everything is a sermon. That every time I'm walking, I'm waiting on God to give me. You can get illustrations in anything. So as I'm consecrating with God, and God, give me what you want me to say, that God can give you sermon and thoughts, and God can drop revelation on you in a commercial, in a billboard. Now, my father and my grandfather, their study habits, they always felt that your sermon thoughts came from the text. That it is engaging the text itself, that my sermon thoughts are always derived from my reading of the text. And I don't have a problem with that. Some people feel that way. I think Fred Craddock, I've heard others say similar things, that they were experiences where in reading the text is where the sermon thought derives from. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that you can be watching a television commercial and a line of something comes out in that commercial that rings, your homiletical antennas go up, and God begins to speak right then. And that thought, you know what I mean? You get that thought, you know what, that's preaching right there. Now the problem comes is when you get that thought and then you go try to find some nebulous text to impose that thought on the text. That's when the challenge comes. But again, I think it's out of consecration, okay? So when it comes to consecration, that deals with the minister being ready. It deals with, preparing yourself to minister. And also I think the other thing that we can do is, have you ever thought about what the needs of your people are in consecration? Some of us don't pray for our people enough, because often God would tell you what to say and what direction to go in by interceding for the people. So sermon prep ain't God just give me a revelation, give me a word. It's God, what is happening in the life of this congregation? Maybe it's with vision. Maybe in your consecration God will give you the next step for vision. So I also think that whenever God gives you vision, preaching needs to be attached with that. A lot of us catch vision with no preaching or teaching to accompany it. I've never tried to transition in 22 years of ministry with a vision without having preaching and teaching to accompany it. You just can't get up in front of Negroes and say, the Lord said we go in here, and you ain't taught them, preach to them to preach the vision. And you run to, listen, God himself can come down and give it to you, and some folks going to be cantankerous and rebellious. But it's much more favorable when you get it from God and then you preach and teach to prepare the people on what God is saying. Here again, that comes out of consecration. What kind of needs? What kind of spirits? Have you ever done an evaluation of the church in terms of where they are from a faith perspective? Have you ever had surveys on what topics, what subjects your people are familiar with? One of the things I'm noticing is that most churches now are getting away from doctrine. We don't hear a lot of doctrinal preaching anymore. A lot of folk in your church are clueless when it comes to doctrine. So even the preaching, teaching ministry, how can you incorporate doctrine? Like right now we're doing the Apostles' Creed on Wednesday night for this quarter. Why? Because folk will come to shout, be excited. You start talking about the virgin birth, the ascension. And he goes to shout when you say money cometh, but you say he ascended to heaven. They have no idea what you're talking about. So it's important that as we grow and become, that we also get back to a doctrinal place. But sometimes you won't realize that if you're not praying for where your people are. Because the people belong to God. God, show me what you have this group to know. Where are we right now? Where are we right now? And so I think that's all part of the process, okay? Any more questions on that? So once I've gone through the process of consecration, then I think the other text is observation. It is the observation of the text. So get your notebooks, okay? What I'm trying to do this year, and a lot of guys have been doing, is having a preaching calendar. My preaching mentor is Dr. Joe Gregory, and other Dr. Matt King Carter. Those are my preaching mentors. And they both suggest that every preaching pastor needs to have a couple things in your preaching calendar. There needs to be something on stewardship. There needs to be something in preaching on commitment. You need something on evangelism, prayer, and family. That some way throughout the course of the year, those are subjects that every pastor needs to incorporate in your preaching calendar. Some guys I know, Dr. Lance Watson, a mentor of mine, he is right now 22 months ahead on his sermons. Right now. 22 months ahead. And that diligence. Dr. Carter has sermons from the Gospel of Matthew, about 400 of them that he'd never preach. Lance Watson doesn't have to write another sermon for the next 2 years and be fresh every weekend. Me, I get you past Sunday. See what I'm saying? So somehow, somewhere, and so what happens, you find yourself in pressure each week. And so I'm preparing this sermon out of a place of pressure. And that's why I think that consecration is important. And then, Lord, and give me a plan. So what I'm hoping we can do, all of us in the next month or so, at least try to get at least a 3-month idea. Now remember, the Holy Spirit has room to interrupt our plans at any moment. But a lot of us are under unnecessary pressure because we don't know where we're going. And then we're preaching without purpose. It's not visionary. It's not transitioning preaching. It's not developmental preaching. It's just preaching each week to kill the folks without a plan. And so you really can't measure how the people were able to grow as a other preaching moment. You really can't measure or chronicle the effectiveness of what you did. We preach a sermon and we think that sermon ends right there and we move on. How does it linger? Okay, so it's the consecration, then it's observation. So that's me simply. Now I'm going to move now to sermon prep. All that's just to preparing the minister. Now once you yourself you're prepared. Like any doctor, when a doctor performs surgery, they have prep. They go and they wash up. Right? They put on their scrubs. Right? Before they cut anybody. They go through a moment of prep. They go through a moment of hygiene, cleanliness. They get themselves together, and then they get ready. They put the mask on, put the thing on, put the scrubs on, thing on it. Then they're ready to go. Us, we just jump in the text all nasty. all dirty, man. Not just we jump in. So my boy, we want to raw dog the text. Just jump in all nasty, doc. You know what I mean? So it's just like you gotta prepare yourself, man. I saw a hand, brother. Yes, sir. Yeah.
What point of the year should you do your plan?
A lot of people Ralph West, what Ralph does, and I've heard a few others, they may take a whole week or 2 weeks off. A lot of these guys are going on retreats. They may lock themselves up in a retreat for 3 or 4 days, or 5 days. They may do a staff retreat somewhere, where they shut down for the whole week, and just simply get away and begin to map it out. Most of them do around September, October, November of the year. I think a good way to do it, and this is a mistake that I think I've made the past couple of years. I used to be very good at it. You know, like I said, my wife, you know, and kids, they the devil. It's just the devil, because they took all my time away from the Lord. Just the devil. So when you see her, they just say, Pastor, you the devil. All right. But seriously, what I would do, well, this is what I have my calendar every year. I would preach on commitment in January. I do Black History in February. I would do something pertaining to the church in March. I would do evangelism in May. I would do some miscellaneous stuff in the summer months. I would come back and do stewardship in October. I would do family in November, and something on Advent and something doctrinal in December. Every year that was pretty my regimen. And so because I knew where I was going, I could put more energy. It's like everything is more targeted. You see what I'm saying? So I know the body of literature. I know, so everything can be focused toward that particular thing. So I'm doing it this year in Bible study, which is very helpful, because I know that I've been able to map the Bible study for the whole year. And we did that past couple of years, but on Sundays I have not done a good job on it. So I think what you can do. Here's the point I was making. I think it's important for the pastor, when you talk about a preaching calendar, I think it's important to get to see where God is trying to take the church first. See, right now it's July. We need to be praying right now, pastors, about what God is saying for your church next year. Are you going to do a theme? What are things God wants you to accomplish? It's also important to put goals. Every year, our church adopts goals and a theme for that year. If you look on our website, 2012, we call this the year of order. Outreach, reclamation, discipleship, evangelism, and responsibility. We adopted that in December as a church family. And on each point, we have things that we want to do in that area. If it's evangelism, a mission trip, so become more evangelistic, right? Now, but the problem is I didn't get that until November. You see? So what I would have liked to do ideally is, God, show me what needs to be done next year. What are 5 major areas that you want where you wanted this church to go in 2013? And then once I get clarity on that, then the word on Sunday mornings can have more affinity with where we're going. Even if every Sunday is not vision. See, how many of us, a lot of us don't do vision preaching. Some sermons will be pastoral, some will be evangelistic, but that needs to be some vision preaching in your calendar on Sundays. So I think my point, so it's hard, what I want to say is for a pastor, a preaching pastor, now if you're not a preaching pastor every week, if you're an associate minister, you need to have a sermon every month. Once a month, you all have a sermon. About 4 years ago, before we moved here, I called a guy, one of our ministers, because I was going to take some time off. We were doing 3 services. And I think I called him in May. I said, it was around Memorial Day. I said, I'm going to be out the first Sunday in July. I need you to preach that Sunday. Pastor, I need more time. Yeah, oh, absolutely not. My point is, if you're an associate minister, you need to have a sermon once a month minimum. See, this is a soft generation. When I went to my dad's church, he'd look over and say, after the next song, the message is going to be brought by E. Dewey. And you're going to perform or pee in your pants. So you always, these associate ministers now, you need to have a sermon once a month, because you never know when something's going to happen. Now, the last couple of years, I haven't been able to let a lot of people preach for the last 3 years. Why? Because we in a mortgage. We got a mortgage to pay on Sunday. I just couldn't do it. Because when we do that, the offering drops. So people said, when the pastor gonna let me preach? Don't worry about that right now. Okay, you just Sunday school, prison ministry. First of all, if you're not teaching youth church Bible, then don't ask me to preach. Right? So if you're an associate minister, once a month you all have a fully prepared message. That means throughout the year you got 12 sermons that you're working on something new. Okay? Once a month preparing something new. You got me? All right. So does that answer your question, brother? So yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Go on.
When you say consecration, kind of going back to that point again.
Yeah.
How do you keep the freshness of not preparing too far ahead, and then understanding that God can change you? You know, let's say this Sunday, you
Right.
focus 10 hours of your study,
Right.
and now Sunday. But how do you keep that from not being an ongoing situation because you prepared 7 or 8 months ahead?
Right. Well, here's the thing. Being prepared, being over-prepared is never handcuffing to God. You can never say to God, I've been prepared. I got 7 months of prepared messages. That's not a hindrance to God. God is not going to be disappointed seeing that his servant has spent this much time in preparation. Trust me on that. God would much rather have an over-prepared servant than somebody who's doing Saturday night specials. So what happens, I believe, is, again now, the consecration has nothing to do with your sermon prep. I'm talking about sermon preparation. I'm talking about consecration with you and God. That's where the liberties and the freedom comes. Now, when you deal with sermon prep, you're preparing for the week, but you're going to rely on your overflow for if God wants to do something else. That's what I'm talking about. Those moments this year, we had 3 of them. Every one of them, God bless the church, over 100 people joined the church on that Sunday. And it had nothing to do with what I prepared. And so it's very humbling. You spend all this time preparing the message and you think you got it tight. And you preach that because, you know, the wind has to blow. If the wind don't blow, I don't care what you prepare, you got to have the wind. So as you prepare, that's prep. I'm talking about consecration. That's where the overflow begins. You need nothing wrong with being ahead of your sermon. I want to encourage us, if we can, by next 6 months, at least be a month ahead. If you can be a month ahead on your sermons, prepared. I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot to me. I mean, when I'm around guys like Lance Watson, it's humbling. This guy can show you 22 months worth of sermons. Ready. So either way God wants to use him. Then he has them all chronicled. Not just by the book, but by the subject matter. So what happens is, so if God shifts you, you got something that you already, he's been working on. You see, you got something that you can pull from. That's what I'm talking about. So once we have the consecration, that's you and God. Now we move into observation. That's me picking up the text. And it's better to pick up the text if I know where I'm going. Sometimes you like me, well, I know some of you may be a little more, and in time, Bishop, anybody else want to say something? Dr. Robinson, anybody, you want to tell us your way you do it, please do so. Because I'm interested to get all of our perspectives. Pastor Coleman, anybody you want to say anything, let us know about how you do yours. If there's anything you want to add that could be helpful to us. There are still times right now where I'm week to week, depending on where I am. Now, the first month of this year, I preached a series for 3 months. I hadn't done that probably since the mid-90s. I preached the life of Joseph. And because my dad was a guy who preached a whole year on a series, and I'd be like, oh, God, please, dog. So I always shun from that because you sometimes you go so long with it. I never shall forget, Ephraim, the typical church member, part 14. I'm like, Doc, please, man, it's time. Come on, man. It's just, I mean, I'm talking about, this is from the 80s. So it just kind of gave me an extra ultra sensitivity to, And you see that time he was the only somebody enjoying it. After the 8th week, it was just him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so what it did for me, it made me ultra sensitive to very long series. I think I did the book of Acts one time, but you have to be careful that you know, when you're doing a series like that. So I was doing the life of Joseph. It was just going to be for the life of a dreamer. It was going to be for the first 4 weeks, from the 2nd Sunday to the 5th Sunday of January. I didn't finish to April. So God stretched me. I didn't finish the Palm Sunday, from the 2nd Sunday in January to the 1st Sunday in April. So I was stretched by God. Because guess what? The people were coming every week like, Pastor, we're going to tell some more about it. Because it was a God thing. It was a God factor. God kept stretching that thing, and it was fresh every week. And it was challenging people at the beginning of the year. And it ended up being almost 3 months. Never done that since maybe 94, that long of a series. Okay? Now I'm doing something on relationships. Been 4 weeks in it. The people are just, I'm trying to get away from it because of that sensitivity, but the people, you know, they're still clinging for it. So here again, so allow yourself to be stretched. So observation, that's me picking up the text. When you pick up that text, here's a challenge. You don't want to pick it up arbitrarily. Some of us do this on Sunday morning, on Friday. Let me just flip through it, and wherever it falls, that's spin the tail on the Bible. This must be the Holy Ghost. Let's be honest, come on. How many of y'all have been there before? How many in your sermon prep? Just spin the tail on the Bible. Wherever she lands, that's God. Dog, that's Obadiah. So so my point is, we can't play lottery with the lives of people. People come on Sunday morning needing a word from God. Jesus couldn't be in your church on Sunday, so he sent you. He sent you to represent him, and then you spin tail on the Bible on Saturday nights after the fight go off. And get up proud like we are just so sainted and spiritual. Done played around all week long, and now people's lives are dependent on it. So out of your consecration, now I'm looking at the text. Hopefully when you look at the text, you have an idea what you're doing. Hopefully you're not looking at it like I have had to do in my own ministry, because I play spin the tail with the Bible. Hopefully when you're observing it because you're observing it for a reason. God has shown you through consecration, through evaluation of the people, through your preaching calendar, he's shown you where to go. Okay, so you have an idea of what God is trying to get you to say. You've taken some notes, you've heard a commercial on TV, you saw a billboard, in your conversation with your buddies, something came up, and now you got an idea on what God wants you to say. So when you observe that text, now I'm observing it, observation. I'm looking at this text, I want to understand it in its historical context. I want to read what's before it, I want to read what's after it. I need to know the context. Last night in Revelation chapter 12, I got to understand what's the context here. What's the context here? Okay? So you hear me talking about pre-trib, mid-trib, post. Now I can just preach it talking about the church, but I want to be accurate in my presentation. Now if you think it may not be necessary, but for me it's important to know what the original writer was saying in its original context. So I got to do some research on that. What was this originally meant? What audience? Who, what, when, why? Those are the questions I'm asking as I'm observing this text. Who wrote it? When? To whom? Why? What was the theme of it? When I was in Morehouse, one of the things that I would do, my roommates and I, you know, when you in college, you broke. So one thing that we did, 3 of us lived together, all of us were preachers. On Friday nights we had no money, we played preaching games. My wife would tell you. What we would do, we would get our girls would go through the Bible and pick a passage. They pick a passage arbitrarily. Give us 5 minutes to preach from it. All of us would preach from that. All of us had 5 minutes to preach from it. The girls decided who had the best sermon. Whoever lost had to buy a piece for everybody. Whoever won, they had to pay anything. My wife, so what happened in that, it gave me, I began to look at each book to understand some basic things about every book in the Bible. Right now I can tell you, all that came from that, because when you get tired of losing, so I look at every book, to understand who wrote it, when, to whom, why, from Genesis to Revelation. I can tell you now, this goes back 20, my wife and I have been dating 20, this go back to 88, 90, 91. You see Wilbur Purvis, James Marable, they tell you the same, right now they tell you, this is what we did on Fridays. So what they did, so when I read that passage, I'm coming to that passage with that in mind. Okay, those things. Then now I'm looking for, here's the thing that you got to do now. You got to have a sensory view of this text. I'm looking for the sights. I'm looking for the sounds. I'm looking for the smells. Let me get in this text. Let me smell it. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the verbs in the text. I'm looking for everything that's active in the text. I'm looking for punctuation marks in the text. Sometimes that's preaching and punctuation marks. You got me? If you got your Bibles, I'll give you an example. Mark chapter 14. Mark 14. Tell you what you can just get to with your observation. Mark chapter 14. Mark chapter 14. Come down to the last verse in Mark 14. What's Mark 14? Mark 14. You got it? Mark 14. What's the last verse? What's the last verse? What's the last verse? 72. What does it say?
Second time the rooster crowed,
and Peter
called to the mind
the word that Jesus
said to him, before the rooster crows twice,
thou shalt them what?
deny me 3 times.
Uh-huh.
And when he thought about it, he wept.
When he thought about it, he wept. This is dealing with Peter's denial of Jesus. Jesus had told him before it happened that he was going to deny him. And he's reflecting on that. What's the last thing you see in that verse? No, what's the last thing you see in that verse? Period. When he thought thereon, he wept. Period. He had reasons to weep. Denied Jesus, followed from afar off. His weeping was justifiable. Many of us need to weep. When we consider our position, our distancing ourselves from God. Some preachers need to be weeping. The times when prosperity became more important than propitiation, we need to be weeping. You let that marinate, deal with the weeping, the repentance. But the good thing about it is the last thing you see in verse 72 is what? Period. Period, punctuation mark, means end of the statement. End of the clause. End of the idea. And after the period, you can begin a new chapter. It's the period that separated denial from, you see the point I'm trying to make? You can preach that right there, just on the period. You get the point I'm trying to make? But the point is, but that is through observation. Everything. Sights, sounds, smells, what's action, what's active. You deal with all that to observe it. I'm observing it, and then I need to get myself into it. I need to be so a part of that that I feel myself in this narrative. I feel myself in it. I literally become one with the passage. Okay? Observation. I'm just feeling it, seeing it, sounding it, everything, jotting everything down. Now after observation, then I begin that, and then I'm doing my investigation. Now that's why I'm doing my word studies. I'm doing my comparative analysis. You need at least 5 translations, 5 translations that you study from and preach from. Okay? Not just the King James, NIV. You know, there's some language and some etymological issues that are presented when you do the King James. Go to the NIV, New King James. Matter of fact, what I'm doing now, often, at least once a month, I preach from the Message Bible. on Sunday morning. You can read the message and you can read the Message Bible and just it just get a line that preaches itself. Just the line in it. It just so it preaches itself. You get your subject simply by reading the clause. Then you go back and develop it, okay? So I'm investigating it. Everything about that text. Who's involved? Their names. What their names meant. Right? The places, the distances. Everything about that text. Everything that's active there. The sights, the smells, the sounds. I'm investigating it. Got me? Now I begin my preparation. What is this text saying? I'm sleeping with my fish, as they call it. Sleeping with this fish. Okay? Now I begin my preparation. Okay? Is this something can this text be a series? What's the main theme of this text? What's this passage teaching? When we took the SAT, you read this passage, what phrase best describes what you just read? Right? Then I move from that, and here's the most difficult part for me. I think that in most sermons, it is the organization. That's E. To me, the most difficult part after the minister has been prepared in the sermon is organization. Because some of us are very prepared, we've investigated, but the sermon is dry because you're reading a dissertation. Sound theologically, but because you have not organized it properly. It's just a string of everything. Ain't going nowhere. You talk about everything with no kind of pattern, no kind of rhyme, no kind of reason. Very solid, very substantive, but what are you going with? Where are you going with this? The organization of it. All right? And then I'm contemplating on that, then the presentation. Okay? Are there any questions on that? Any questions in the comments? Additions, rebuttals? Yes, sir.
Can you give us some strategies around organization?
There are several types of sermons. You have topical sermons. The topical sermon is if you're dealing with something, the mercies of God. The mercies of God. You can deal with assorted passages that deal with mercies of God. You can deal with the plurality of mercies and go to some Old Testament passage, Lamentations. What does Lamentations say about it? The plurality of mercies. You can go to Romans 12. I beseech you therefore by the mercies of God. Right? The priority of mercies. That because we got it, we got a response. So I'm dealing with the mercies of God, and I'm dealing with assorted passages that undergird the theme of mercies. Okay? That's a topical message. Then you have expository messages. You have narrative messages. And you have, I want to call this textual sermons. Now, for me, Haddon Robinson, Joe Gregory, even Ralph West now, they are more proponents of what they call a narrative exposition, where I'm just simply telling the story. For me, 80% of my sermons are going to still be points. I think points for me have more take-home value. It has more portability. Helps me to get it structured. It helps people to recall it better. Ralph, Dr. Gregory, who also does points, they feel like the passage determines your approach. They feel sometimes the beauty of the narrative, that you can interrupt the beauty of the narrative by putting points in it. I think you can do it in such a way. And so for me, I like to have points. Like last night, I gave y'all points. We dealt with the passage, but I wanted to give you different, what our Clark used to call them movements in the text. The movements in the text. This text has movements. Moves from here, moves to here. For me, that's typically what I like to do. because it's just my style. You know, that's my own style. It's not the only style of preaching. That works better for me. My dad is more of a narrative preacher. You know, who's trying to adapt to expedition. This is what I do think, though. I think that the pastor needs to be able to do all these sermons throughout the year, just to keep yourself fresh. Those y'all, when you get married, whether you're female or male, when you're rendering due benevolence to your spouse, you don't want to do the same thing the same way every time. Don't, you understand what I'm trying to say? So don't come at me with 3 points and a close and a poem. Every time. Change it up. Let's go on the steps. Get on the washing machine. Go outside on the deck. You know what I'm saying? Change this sucker up every now and then. I say when you're married and your spouse. Right? Yes, sir. Tell my wife, go get a nursing uniform. Put a chili outfit on. Get some pom-pom and do this doggone thing, right? But that's so I'm saying, so the same, nobody eats the same thing every day physically. But preaching, we get so in such one regimen that the folk is predictable. And then you don't stretch yourself as a learner. You want to keep yourself fresh and keep your I did something last year that was, Dr. Preach Fry Brown encouraged me. I think the best sermon I preached last year was an Advent. I had enjoyed a sermon like that, and Preach Fry Brown encouraged me. And she's going to encourage you tomorrow if you go to class. I did for Advent. I did a sermon, a narrative sermon on the innkeeper. We always talk about there was no room for him in the inn. Who was responsible for telling him that? Who was at the front desk? Think about it. Think about that. How do you feel about telling Jesus? There's no room. Now, that's not in the text, but it is. You got me? And I did it first person. So I opened up. I said, I really didn't want to go work that morning. See that? Preach Fry Brown talk. Who the little boy that gave his lunch to Jesus? Who was his mama? If he comes back with 12 baskets, boy, didn't I tell you to stop stealing? I only gave you 2 fish and 5 loaves. But here you come back with 12 baskets. This is not what I gave you. Mama, I didn't steal this time. A man asked for my lunch. You say it's there, but it's not there. And you can deal with that, get into the who were the people threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fire? What you think they saw? What they felt? Who was the one that pierced Jesus in the side and blood and water came out? What you think he felt? There's a lot of characters there. Moses, Paul, Joshua. Whole lot of stuff that we don't stretch ourselves to look hard enough for and embody. And when I tell you, it has a whole new perspective of freshness. Okay, where am I now? Okay, organization. So for me, I like points. I prefer points. I think you can do a point without breaking up the beauty. Now here again, that's based often on the narrative. You know, if you're in Proverbs, it's, you know, it's not. So the text determines your approach. But I try to always have movements. Just that's what I've been doing for so long, and I'm comfortable with it. And I think it's been more effective for my presentation. But you got some people just storytellers. You know, the late C.A.W. Clark wasn't a point preacher. Was a narrative preacher. He told a story. Jerry Black is another great narrative. But even he's doing points. So even he's growing. He used to be just straight narrative. So I think you got to be able to deviate it. But I prefer points for me. But that's sometimes I do it. I'm just telling the story and there are no points. What you want to do when you look at a passage, though, in terms of organization of it, you want to ask yourself, you want to just dissect it. You can look at one passage and just dissect it. John 3:16, you know, the love of God, right? For God so loved the world. That's the plentifulness of God's love. It's plentiful. Why? Because he loved the world. It's plentiful. That he gave his only begotten son. The pricelessness of God's love. It's priceless because he did what? Gave his only begotten son. The protectiveness of God's love. That whosoever believeth on him shall not perish. The protectiveness. And then the permanence of God's love. But have everlasting life. One passage, 4 movements. You can take one verse, dissect it, and present it. But I'm looking for the nouns, I'm looking for the verbs, I'm looking for the action, I'm looking for punctuation. I'm trying to get inside of it. I want to get inside the thought.
What you're looking for, everybody here on the whole TV. What you're looking for, whoa, welcome to the whole TV. What you're looking for, you can find it here on the whole TV. What you're looking for, what you're looking for, you can find it here on the whole TV. What you're looking for, whoa, welcome to the whole TV. What you're looking for, you can find it here on the whole TV. What you're looking for, what you're looking for, you can find it here on the whole TV. What you're looking for, whoa, welcome to the whole TV.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. We thank God for Jesus and all of his attributes to show us the way down here on earth. Hallelujah. Bread of life sent down from glory. Many things you were on earth, a holy king, a carpenter. You are the living word, say, bread of life, sent down from glory. Yeah, many things you were on earth, a holy king, a carpenter. You are the living word, say, oh, oh, many things, a holy king of God. Oh, you are the bread of heaven, sent down from glory. Many things you are. On earth, a holy king, a carpenter. You are say, awesome ruler, gentle redeemer. Yeah, yeah. God with us, the living truth, and what a friend we have in you. Somebody say, awesome ruler. You are the awesome ruler. Gentle redeemer, oh, the only one with us, the living truth, and what a friend we have in you. Now somebody cry out, Jesus. That's his name. Say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's what we call you. That's what we call you. You're born by on a tree. You died to save humanity. Now lift up your voice and say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's what we call you. Yes, you we believe in your word. Your word is live in me. Oh, you are the living word. Oh, you are. Oh, bread of heaven. Feed me till I want no more. Oh, you are the living word. You're alive and active in me. Oh, you are the living word. You are the living word.
This is the day the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to the Hope TV, and certainly thank you for tuning into this Bible study with us today. It means the world to have you with us, and I pray that you're blessed and that you're walking in the manifold blessings of God. I hope that you're staying safe, and I hope that you are wearing your mask, staying properly socially distanced, keeping your hands washed, and prayer and living by faith. Wearing masks and washing your hands and utilizing social distancing is not fear, it's common sense. Every time I get in the car, I put my seatbelt on. Putting my seatbelt on doesn't mean that I don't have faith. It means that faith without works is dead. And I just hope that we're being safe in these days and times, that we're not allowing the politicization of this moment to make us not practice good science and the good things that God has placed on here for us to be safe and be protected. So God bless you. Hope you've been blessed. So glad to have you here. I'm honored to be able to share the Word of God with you on today, and I want to welcome you to our Bible study. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Hope TV and to the Bible study of the House of Hope Atlanta. It means the world to me. And if you're watching, won't you drop me a line even now? Let us know the city, the state, and the country from which you're viewing. Means the world to us. If you've not yet followed the Hope TV, would you please do so? We have several platforms that you can follow on social media. It's amazing. We started the Hope TV. I shared my vision about it with our team on March 16th. We did our first show on March 19th. The whole goal was just to stay in contact with our church throughout the pandemic. You never could have told me on March 16th, when I shared this vision initially with our team, that 4 months later we have over 25 million views. And that's just the ones we can quantify via our cumulative platforms. It's nothing but the grace of God, and we give God glory and praise for it. And so if you've not yet followed us on social media, we have 3 platforms that you can follow on the Hope TV. You have a Facebook that's called the Hope TV. They want you to follow. Those of you who've been following us on Instagram, these are all new platforms. We're already almost at 2,100 people on Instagram who are following the Hope TV. And so I want you to follow it. If you've not yet followed it, please take that moment to follow us on Instagram at the Hope TV. We're trying to push those numbers to 3,000 by the end of this quarter. And of course, on Twitter, those numbers are coming steady. Amen. And we're nearing about 400 on Twitter as well. So if you've not yet followed the Hope TV, please do so. We started this platform, as I said earlier, in March. Now we have about 35 programs that we're offering. It's turned from a vision into a network in 4 months, and we give God glory for it. Shout out to our Hope TV team, all our producers and editors and APs and everybody who's a part of the Hope TV family. Listen, I want to thank God for the House of Hope Atlanta, my beloved church family. What a blessing it is to be able to share, and I miss you guys so much. I miss being able to gather with you in public worship. It literally hurts that I can't see your faces, but I hope you can feel my love. I really do. We're working hard, doing all we can to try to show you that we love you and trying to provide content for you daily. I hope you feel my love. I wish I could just tell every one of you to your faces how much I love you, give every one of you a hug. But I hope you can feel my love through our efforts. I hope you can feel our work. We're working hard, and working harder than I've ever worked. I've always worked hard as a pastor, but I'm doing everything I can to make sure that we do all we can to provide good leadership and good ministry. So to my beloved household family, I love y'all so much. Hope you feel my love. I love you. And if you're watching and you've not yet followed us on social media, I want you to do so now. You can follow the House of Hope. We have a YouTube channel that just eclipsed 50,000 subscribers. To God be the glory. Over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube channel, The House of Hope. We give God praise for that. If you've not yet followed us, you can do so now. The YouTube channel, you can get notifications when content is updated. So 50,000 subscribers now on YouTube. We give God praise for that. Also, the House of Hope Atlanta on Facebook. Those numbers are growing exponentially as well. Then last but not least, HOHATL on Instagram, HOHATL on Twitter. So please, let's run those numbers up for the House of Hope. Again, that's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then last but not least, yours truly. If you've not yet followed me on all things social media, I just want to thank God for a great team who has really been in this technological stuff. I'm pretty progressive when it comes to vision, but this social media really was never been a techie guy, more of a visual guy. But I want to thank God for a team who was in many ways kind of equipped for us to have a digital ministry. And so we have I have a YouTube channel, Dr. E. Dewey Smith, well over 60,000 subscribers to that one by itself. A channel I didn't know I had until recently. So thank God for those 60,000+ subscribers on YouTube. If you've not yet followed Dr. E. Dewey Smith, I got a lot of music on there, old school hymns that they've been posting for years. Go to Dr. E. Dewey Smith on YouTube. Also on Facebook, I am the official page of Pastor E. Dewey Smith. I think we had a couple thousand people over the last 7 days just to Facebook. So I give God praise for that. The official page of Pastor E. Dewey Smith. And then, of course, on Instagram and Twitter, it's at E. Dewey Smith, at E. Dewey Smith. So we've given you all those platforms that you can follow us on social media, because all of our content is streamed through those multiple platforms. We don't just stream to one or two. We stream all of our content to every platform, so every platform can grow. Those of you who are watching today by Apple TV, Roku TV, Twitch, Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, the houseofhopeatl.com website, the edeweysmith.org website, the House of Hope Atlanta app. My app is being redone and it's being reformatted. Hopefully I have that for you shortly. However you're viewing, I want to thank you for your viewership. Please just continue to help us to grow this platform. We are thankful for all of you who believe in what we're doing, and I thank God for you. Also, I want to thank God for our worship team for blessing us today with wonderful music. Yana Crawley, our guest artist, who blessed us so tremendously as well. Also, if you're viewing today through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, to comment, to like, or to share, this helps us with our algorithms tremendously. So if you have not subscribed, please do so. While you're watching, if that platform that you're viewing through will allow you to hit that like button, just keep hitting that like button. Just keep hitting that like button throughout this broadcast. And then if you can comment, please send your comments. It's very difficult and extremely weird trying to preach and teach through a computer screen, through a camera. Is just different and it's tough, particularly when I'm trying to teach, because I don't know if it's getting across or not. Sometimes when you're in the room, you can see the faces. You can tell if people get it when they don't get it. So it's been very difficult. And a lot of my pastors, if you're not a member of the House of Hope, pray for your pastors. I don't care what church you're part of, pray for your pastors, because many of us are not adapting well. This is not fun, and it is not easy, because when you're trying to teach, it's almost like cooking a meal and you don't know if the people like it. If they ate it. So it's tough. But your comments are like virtual amen. So thank you for your comments. And of course, we take this moment to share. Just share this link with about 5 people now. Help us get the word out about Bible study on today. I'm excited. So thank you again. Listen, today we're studying, continuing our study on the spiritual disciplines. I think I have one more lesson after this one. And we've taken our time the last 3 months to go through a book that I call my personal spiritual tune-up book by Richard J. Foster. It's called The Celebration of Discipline. And many of you have been blessed by it. And I want to thank those of you who've commented. You've been with us the whole time. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for that. It means the world to me. And we've gone through this book chapter by chapter by chapter. And I appreciate you for your support. and you need to get this book. It's a spiritual tune-up book, and I believe it's been so apropos and so necessary, particularly for those of us who have had to deal with this pandemic. I believe this book is a reordering. I think it's a centering type of book. I think a lot of people have got to make some adjustments and some adaptations about life. And I don't think there's a better book that can help you during this time to kind of seek the face of God about the next dimensions and what happens after this than does this book, The Celebration of Discipline by Richard J. Foster. So today I'm going to be talking about the discipline of submission. And I'm going to take my time today. If you've not yet downloaded this outline, I want you to do so. You can go to the houseofhopeatl.com to the website, and you can go into the links, and actually you can download the Bible study. If you need a printer, you can download it and print it yourself. I'm talking to several of my pastors and several of my colleagues, and some I've been blessed to mentor. They actually take my outlines, they put their church name on it, and they teach it to their church, because all I did was outline the book. So if it works, it works. So thank you. I want to thank all of you already tuning in today. Hey, thank you so much, Tina Williams. God bless you, Fort Valley, and Gwendolyn and Loretta Day. Gwen from Nashville. All right, from 478. Amy Robinson from Decatur, Georgia. Lenore Creighton from Orlando, Florida. Wow. Gwenda from Riverdale. God bless you. Miss you. Robin Harrison. God bless you. It's tough. We'll be staying with. Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Those are people who already commented from Facebook. Derek McGee from Tallahassee, Florida. God bless you. Marcella Rice. God bless you so much. I appreciate your comments. Thank y'all so much for being supportive. Maddie Vaughn Clark. She's on YouTube. Thank you. Good morning, Brenda. God bless you. I appreciate you so very much. These are some of our YouTube comments that are coming in already. To God be the glory. Thank you, Tina Williams, for reminding me. We have one of our sponsors, one of our title sponsors of the Hope TV now. There's a revolutionary app I want to talk about right quick. They have certainly helped us to get the word out, help us to spread this message of hope. They know we're hope dealers. And it's a new revolutionary app called Faith Social. Listen, this app is amazing. It brings Christians together from all over the world in a dynamic way to have a digital faith experience. Has enriching resources, personalized content. You can come together for prayer, for worship, for Bible study, for journaling, have prayer circles, have a video. We're also putting some of our content on Faith Social, all types of podcasts. It's really, I haven't seen anything like this. A lot of people been spending a lot of time on Facebook. You need to spend some time with Faith Social. Listen, this app is unbelievable. It is a spiritual toolkit, and they have been sponsors of the Hope TV. I want to give a shout out to them. The app is free. You can follow them on social media at Faith Social. And I want you to get this app because they've been a blessing to us. And I want to continue sponsorship and continue the partnerships. So you can go to faithsocial.com. That's www.faithsocial.com. You can download this app free of charge. You can download it from Google Play. You can download it from the App Store. www.faithsocial.com. Please, let's shout out to them. One of the viewers reminded me of that. So thank you, Faith Social, our sponsors. I appreciate you so very much. Thanks for helping us to get the word out here on the Hope TV. Now, if you go to their Instagram page, it's Faith Social. And if you go to the Instagram page, follow them on Instagram and go to their last post and just tell them we heard about you from Dr. E. Dewey Smith and Hope TV. That way they will know that their sponsorship is garnering dividends for them. Amen. I'm sure they want to return their investment. And because I believe in them, I don't believe in just endorsing products that I don't believe in, that I don't think will be beneficial for you. So I want this to be a mutually beneficial partnership. And so if you can go to faithsocial.com, it doesn't cost you a dime, it doesn't cost you a penny. And they're helping me to improve our production, helping us to improve our quality of our programming, so we can, in a more efficient way, a more effective way, minister to you. So as I minister to you, won't you help me minister to them? So download the app, faithsocial.com. Follow them on social media, and leave a message. Let them know you heard about them from Dr. E. Dewey Smith on the Hope TV. So shout out to our sponsors at faithsocial.com. All right, let me get back into the lesson today. So again, we're talking about the discipline of submission. I want you to go to the website houseofhopeatl.com, and you can download this Bible study right now as we're getting ready to get into it. I think I'm going to take this into two parts so I can take my time and get through it, and I can finish it next week. But it's such a powerful lesson that I really don't want to run through it. I want to make sure I get it and do a good job with it. And so we're talking about this discipline of submission. The discipline of submission is an outward discipline. And that's a quote by Martin Luther. Martin Luther he's known to be the founder or the leader of a movement called the Protestant Reformation. He's a reformer. We have Catholicism. Protestantism came out of Catholicism. Many of you, like me, I'm a Protestant. You got four forms of Protestantism, and you got Protestantism, you got Eastern Orthodox, you got Anglicanism. These are forms of Christianity, rather. But Protestantism came out of Catholicism, and it started with Martin Luther. Dr. King says, I have a dream one day that Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics. Amazingly, Protestantism started out of protest. We talk about protest and people protesting in the streets. Just want to throw that in at you. But Martin Luther is the one who started the Great Reformation period. Basically, some things were happening with the Catholic Church. Martin Luther got upset. They were selling indulgences. They were selling these prayers, had an a la carte list of prayers, basically, that you go to the priest and pray for prayer. They didn't believe in the priest of all believers. So he wrote 95 theses, hung up on the church there in Germany to let them know that what they were doing, so this whole concept of the priesthood of all believers, but it started in Protestantism. But this is Martin Luther. I just want to throw it out, just give you a little church history there. Martin Luther makes a statement that a Christian is a perfectly free Lord of all, subject to none. A Christian is a perfectly dutiful servant of all, subject to all. So we're Lord of all, subject to none. But he says, but a Christian is we are a perfectly, so we are dutiful servants. That's what we are. We're dutiful servants, and we're subject to all. And so he's trying to tell us that we're not, that we are responsible for servanthood. The idea there is submission. Let me keep going. And here's the thing, and this is why this is so important. The discipline of submission is the most abused spiritual discipline. These are a few introductory points he makes in this book, and I want to give them to you. The discipline of submission is the most abused spiritual discipline because people talk about submission. And some people use this term submission, but they abuse it. And there's a difference between submission and manipulation. There's a difference between submission and intimidation. There's a difference between submission and to abuse people. And sometimes even in church and ecclesiastical settings, I've seen people have abusive forms of faith and abusive forms of ecclesiastical relationships. And in the name of submission, there's a difference between submission and manipulation. And I want to talk about that because sometimes a lot of abuse, a lot of emotional abuse, People will beat people down and in the name of submission. And I just want to talk about that for a moment, all right? Humans can take the best teaching and turn into the worst ends. That is so true. That people can take submission. And you've seen people like, Jim Jones and David Koresh and so many others who took submission and where they even deified human leaders in the name of submission. And so we have to be very, very careful because I've seen it happen a whole lot of times in church and in faith settings. Listen to this. Nothing can put people in bondage like religion. Lord have mercy. Let me say that again. Nothing could put people in bondage like religion. And while I'm on that, let me just say this. Religion is just it's just a system of beliefs. So consequently, anything can be a religion. That's what religion is, just a system of beliefs. A religion can be a worship of your car. People can turn anything into religion. And they can take any type of teaching and call it religion. And our ancestors realized that, and they realized that all religion is not healthy religion. So they would ask the question, is your God good religion? Certainly, Lord, because they realized that all religion wasn't necessarily a good religion. And in a real sense, a lot of unhealthy religious dogma and principles have been used to cause so. Think about this. Think about for 2,000 years the wars that have gone on in the name of religion. I think it's important that we understand that, particularly as Christians, because when we talk about rewriting history, we're very quick as Christians to point out the fallacies and the fallibilities of others. Like you have a lot of Islamophobia happening here. September 11th, 19 men hijacked 4 planes, holy jihad. And in the name of religion, they believe that by becoming martyrs, by killing infidels, Christians, or Americans, that they would automatically go to a place with Allah, and that's just another word for God. We call him God, they call him Allah. It's the same thing. What I mean, we call God God or Jehovah. They call God Allah. The difference is they have a prophet Muhammad. We believe in Jesus. But we see holy wars taking place. We see we see Muslims, perpetuating violence in the name of faith and religion. But let me say this, that we have to be careful with that because Christianity is just as notorious, if not more so. Christianity has a longer history of perpetuating violence. You got to think the Prophet Muhammad was born, so when you think about it, when you really think about this, Christianity really has a deep history. Prophet Muhammad was born 600 years after Jesus. But when you talk about when you study the Constantine, if you study the Crusades, a lot has happened in the name of Christianity. When you think about the slave trade and violence perpetuated in the name of Christianity. Native Americans been slaughtered by Christians. Wars that have taken place, unjust wars, invading Iraq with a flag in one hand and a Bible in the other. Somebody once said that when fascism comes back alive, it'll be draped with a Bible and American flag. So I want us to know just the history of that, because a lot of what we have done, even as believers, is have done in the name of Christianity. When the president can tear gas peaceful protesters and go stand in front of a church and hold up a Bible. I want you to understand this. So a lot of people have taken an unhealthy view of Christianity. And there's a difference between a European, Americanized, Romanized, Westernized Christianity versus a Republicanized Christianity versus the Jesus of Nazareth. My God. It's important that we understand that a lot of people, please understand that the KKK is a Christian organization. Many of our forefathers were Christians, but they owned slaves. Some of the same men who wrote the Declaration of Independence wrote that while enslaving other people, but we call them Christians. So it's not just enough to have religion. The question is you got good religion? Because all religion may not be good religion. I hope you understand the point I'm trying to make. And a lot of things have been done to put people in bondage in the name of religion. You see, you got children, immigrant children at our southern borders in cages, and Christians support it. And so in many instances, a whole lot is going on in the name of religion. And so that's why it's important that we don't just communicate the name of Jesus. We also have to demonstrate the nature of Jesus. It's not just enough to have a bracelet that says WWJD, what would Jesus do? We know WWJD. We know what Jesus would do because the book tells us. But a lot of what has happened in the name, and so when you see people say, I won't have anything to do with religious, they may say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, because they look at the history of the world and what has happened. We can be so divided. Christians can isolate, can demonize, can disenfranchise people. You know, we lift our laws and our dogmas, and we don't realize Paul said, you know, what if I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but I don't have no love? I'm just a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. And see, the problem a lot of times when religion is bad religion, it puts people in bondage, because we talk about that's a word called orthodoxy. Orthodoxy. Ortho meaning correct, doxa beliefs. Doxos, doxos. Orthodoxy. That's correct beliefs. That's correct precepts. So a lot of people read the book to know it. They got orthodoxy. But what we've been called to have is not just orthodoxy, but orthopraxy. Orthodoxy is what you believe. Orthopraxy is how you behave. So I can't say I studied the Bible, but yet I'm not concerned about the least, the last, and the lost. I can't say I'm a Christian because I got this flag, but I'm not responding to the hungry people, or the hurting people, or poor people, or those who are left out. So if I'm really about Christ, I'm about a movement of love and justice. I can't say I'm a follower of Christ and I'm not about justice. You know, if you read Howard Thurman's Jesus and the Disinherited, James Cone, God is the God of the oppressed. And so the ministry of Jesus was not just for the wealthy and the rich. He said, you know, in Luke, his inaugural address, as he quotes from Isaiah, in Luke 4:18, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted. He sent me to preach deliverance to the captives, recovering of sight to them that are blind, you know, to set at liberty those that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. Those are the categories of people he came for. So how am I going to say I got the religion of Christ, but the things I do don't emulate what Christ did? So it's not just enough to have orthodoxy if I don't have orthopraxy. Orthodoxy is what I believe. Orthopraxy is how the church behaves. How we've treated Muslims, how we treated people who are unsaved, how we treated people from the LGBT community, how we treated women. A lot of what we've done, we quote the name, we communicate the name of Jesus, but through our religious in our faith, we don't demonstrate the nature of Jesus. So don't just communicate his name, demonstrate his nature. And if you're communicating the name but not demonstrating the nature, then you don't have good religion. And it's those types of religious principles that can put people in bondage. I hope I'm making sense. Let me keep going. So religion is not to put people in bondage. Jesus, I came to set you free. And he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. You got a lot of people who are free, they're bound by the law, they're bound by, but that's not the purpose. It's not to put us in bondage. So a lot of times people have been placed in bondage to religion. 4. Here's the next one. Disciplines are not the answer, but they lead us to the answer. So, the answer is God. The answer is having connected with Christ. The disciplines help us to get that. They're avenues. They're not the destination. They're not the destination. They're the transportation. Disciplines are transportations to get you to the destination, which is that union with God. It helps you have that intimacy with God. So they're not the answer. They only lead us to the destination. Let me give you another couple introductory points. Next. The purpose of spiritual disciplines is freedom. I like that. So the whole purpose of it is freedom. It's freedom. The purpose of spiritual discipline is freedoms. Is to help us to not be in bondage, but to help us to have freedom. That's the goal. The purpose of spirit, to free us to be at one with God. Okay. To the spiritual disciplines help to discard us and rid us from the stuff that puts us in bondage. So the disciplines don't come to put us in bondage. They come to help us get free. My God. I hope y'all listen to me here. That's the goal. That's the goal. So let me continue going. Submission frees us from the terrible burden of always needing to get our way. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Y'all, that's the next introductory point. It frees us from the terrible burden of always needing to. Sometimes submission helps us to keep ourselves in check. Because what happens a lot of times with us, if we're not careful, we make everything about us. But it helps us. It helps us. It helps us to not always have the need to get our way. Lord have mercy. Next, submission helps us to distinguish between genuine issues and self-will. When I can submit to beyond myself, these disciplines help me to really, the disciplines of the submission helps me to really examine myself. Helps you to examine yourself. See, here's the thing. It's hard sometimes to tell the difference between my wants and God's will. Sometimes it's a difference between our passions and his plan. And so and if you're not careful, sometimes you can spiritualize your wants to make your wants his will. The Bible says, ask and it shall be given, seeking you shall find. The Bible says he'll give me the desires of my heart. Yes, yeah, theoretically. But there are times when what you want may not be his will. See, let me give you an example. Moses didn't want to speak because of the stuttering problem. But his wants weren't God's will. Abraham didn't want to separate from Lot, but God told him in the beginning, leave your country and your kinfolks. And he took Lot with him and ran into some trouble till he had to separate. Just because you want it doesn't mean it is will. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. He went to Tarshish instead. But just because Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh does not mean that Nineveh wasn't God's will. Are you listening to me? Jeremiah didn't want to speak no more in his name. But he said, every time I keep my mouth closed, I find it's like fire shut up in my bones. Just because you don't want it doesn't mean, or you want something doesn't mean it's not. So he's going to give you another one. Jesus wanted God to find another way to save the world other than him going to the cross. That's why he said in Gethsemane, Lord, if it be possible, pass this cup from me. I don't prayed it 3 times. Can you say the word without me putting nails in my hands? I don't want to go to the cross. But just because it wasn't his human want does not mean it was not God's will. And he had to come to a point of surrender where he said, nevertheless, not my will, not what I want, but let yours be done. And sometimes, similarly in our lives, it's hard to tell if it's my want or if it's will. And we have to be careful. And the Bible says, I can ask what I want, ask what I will. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Whatever I want in faith, I ask it in grace. Yeah, theoretically. But at the end of the day, you better be careful that what you're wanting is in his will. Because sometimes you're not careful, he might give you what you want. But if what you're wanting is not in his will, you're going to always regret it. Trust me on that. Sometimes one of the biggest pains you can experience is when you get what you want and not what he wills. And so we better learn. I'm just not telling this from theory. I'm telling this from experience and from the scriptures that the discipline of submission helps us to distinguish between genuine issues and my self-will. Because we can get ourselves in a whole bunch of trouble. I'm telling you, we can mess things up in our lives so terribly because we will focus on what we wanted and not what he willed. Hope that makes sense to you. And so submission helps you to get to that point. I hope they help. Let me give you another quote. So the biblical teaching on submission focuses primarily on the spirit. Let me give you this point. The biblical teaching on submission focuses primarily on the spirit with which we view other people. Wow. Let me do it again. The biblical teaching of submission focuses primarily on the spirit with which we view other people. Now, one more time. The biblical teaching on submission focuses primarily on the spirit with which we view other people. Scripture does not attempt to set forth a series of hierarchical relationships, but to communicate to us an inner attitude of mutual subordination. What he's basically trying to say is that there's this principle helps us to deal with other people. And that's how we view other people. That is submission. Scripture, however, does not attempt to set forth these hierarchical relationships, but to communicate an inner attitude. This is not to push some people up. They're bigger than you and lower them. They're the Lord and you the subjects. They're the aristocracy, you the peasant. No, it's not about a hierarchical relationship. Not a hierarchical relationship, but about an inner attitude of mutual subordination. Well, I voluntarily humble myself for the sake of order to realize I got to submit to somebody. I've got to respect. I got to honor. I got to listen. I've got to be accountable. And a lot of us don't want accountability. And the worst thing that can happen to a leader is when a person or a child or a business owner or a pastor or even a president, when there is no submission, whether there's no mutuality of subordination, whether there is no mutual accountability, that can be very problematic. So it's an inner attitude. Those can't nobody tell me nothing. I can do bad by myself. Be careful, because God uses submission to help develop us and to protect us and to help lead us to the answer, to really give you freedom, not bondage. Now, what did the Lord say about submission? A couple of things. I'm going to lift this point, and I think I'm going to get through one. I'm going to probably get through one, maybe two. What did the Lord say about submission? Here's what Jesus said in Mark 8:34. This is what he said about submission. Look what he said. Let me give you the scripture. In Mark 8:34, listen to what Jesus said. Jesus said, and when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, whosoever will come after me, listen to this, let him deny himself. Y'all gotta forgive me because I got some stories for you from church. I'm a church boy, so I'm silly, with some things. But I remember I had a preacher preach for me one time, and he said And Jesus said, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself. He said, y'all forgive me. He said, let him deny himself. No, it's not. No, I ain't. No, I said, Reverend, Dennis is where you eat. That's not what he said. He didn't say let him deny himself. He said let him deny himself. Let me get back to the lesson. But y'all better stop denying yourself in this quarantine. You better stop. You better stop denying yourself and start denying yourself. That's a true story. So y'all forgive me. I got a lot of stories like that. But he says, listen, whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. Let him deny himself. Let him deny himself. Let him deny himself. See, that's the whole part of this is this whole submission piece. That's right, Stephanie. Safe place is the will of God. Yes, that's right, Stephanie. You know, and sometimes here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing, guys. You better stop. You better stop denying yourself now. Start denying yourself. But anyway, let me get back to the lesson. But the thing about denial, Jesus was saying to them, it's not all about you. It's not all about you. If you're going to come after me, if you're going to be my disciple, and that word disciple in the Greek is mathetes. In Greek, it means a learner. It means a follower. That's what disciple means. Learner or follower. Mathetes is the Greek word for disciple. It means learner or disciple. So he says, if you're going to be my disciple, if you're going to be a learner or disciple, you got to, first of all, when you come after me, the first thing you got to do is move yourself out the way. The first thing I want you to learn how to do is say, it's not all about me. And let me tell you why this passage is so difficult, because it's so countercultural. Because everything we do now culturally seems, everything we see, particularly with social media and this current world, it's all about us. It's this whole ancient teaching called the Epicureans. Epicureanism. It's all eat, drink, and be merry. That's what Epicureanism was. You know, and you got a 21st century Epicurean theology and philosophy and ideology. It's just you eat, you drink, you be merry. You know, they called it Epicureanism in antiquity. We call it YOLO. You only live once. Enjoy yourself. You work hard, you play hard. You know what I mean? You deserve it. You earned it. You deserve a break today. Go on. So everything is about us. My brand, my money, my this, the individualism, the narcissism. It's all about us, our folks, our selfies, our pictures. It's all about us. Okay? But Jesus said, listen, one of the ways that you got to come and become my mathetes, my learner, my disciple, you got to deny yourself. You got to deny yourself. You got to move yourself out of the way. You got to say, it's not about me. And that's so hard, particularly when we've been taught that it's all about you. It's what you want. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. You know, when I was a boy, I had a commercial with Burger King. You can have it your way. And many of us have a Burger King theology, Burger King philosophy, a Burger King ideology, Burger King philosophical presuppositions. You can have it your way. But in life, to be Christ-like and to be close to God, you can't always have it your way. It's not all what you want. So Jesus says, I want you to deny yourself, then take up your cross. So not only do you deny yourself, but now you got to cross the bear as well. Now we got to be careful what we call crosses, because sometimes in church we call abuses crosses. I've seen some crazy situations where people even try to name domestic abuse and violence a cross. God has never called no woman to accept some man going upside your head. Now I got a Greek word for you for that, but it'll be profane, so I can't say it. That's not a cross. No, God has never called a woman getting beat by a husband up a cross. That is not that is not the will of God. So that ain't your cross to bear. So please don't try to ever make abuse be cross bearing. Please don't do that. Please don't do that, because I've seen too much in my life. No. A man beating a woman is not cross-bearing. Or in some instances, a woman beating up a man, and you got to sit there and take it, she comes out your head. That is not cross-bearing. Okay? So let's make sure that's abuse. Right? So I want to make sure that we differentiate those two. Okay? But you got to deny yourself, take up your cross. He says, and now you follow after me. Now you walk in my footsteps, not your own. I've got a path for you to walk, and I need you to submit yourself to that path. And that's so countercultural because everything now is about my path, what I want to do. Even when we were brought up, one of the things we were taught as kids, I think some of you heard it, and I think a part of it, particularly as an African American growing up in a rural setting, a small city, but I think it was just African American teachings, period, because we had to be twice as good, and because there was so much to tell us about who we weren't. It's a lot of stuff we got to work through. I mean, it's layers of treatment and oppression and teaching that we have to overcompensate. But stuff like, well, you can be whatever you want to be. You whatever you want to be, you can do it. You set your mind to it, you can do it. Career day, what you want to be when you grow up. And so all my life I heard it. We had career days. You can dress up for career days in third grade. You want to be a football player. Everybody want to be a football player, basketball player. What you want to be when you grow up. And I think the whole idea was to push us to dream and believe and not be bound by limitations, not be bound by racism or justice. So I think it was noble. It was very noble, I believe. And I believe it was well intended, to give us a sense of pride. I'm black and I'm proud. Can't nobody hold you back. You can be an attorney. You can be the president. Because there was so much about our society and our environments that prohibited us from believing and dreaming. Kids got boys in the hood who've never seen a black doctor, never seen black attorneys, never seen black professionals. So I think a lot of that teaching, it came to kind of get us to dream, to believe outside of our own parameters and that parochial perspectives. So while I understand why those things were, while we bequeathed certain things from our ancestors and from our foreparents, the problem with that is this. They taught us you can be whatever you want to be. What do you want to be when you want to grow up? If you work hard, you can become it. The problem with that is that it often left God out of the equation. So how do we teach people how to be, how to dream and not have limitations, but at the same time say to them, listen, you were created with a purpose from God. So in many ways, the passion should not be, the goal should not be whatever you want to be. The goal should be get clarity about why I was created. And then once I get clarity about why I was created, let me submit to that. Lord have mercy. Because see, here's I hope I'm making sense. I wish I could see y'all faces because I want to pick that onion a little bit, because what happens is most of us who went to school to make money or something you like. What can make some good money? Good job. We'll get you a good job. But sometimes, and we get student loans sometimes, we work on a job 20 years and we're unhappy. Now we're 40 changing careers. Or we go to college and now a few years out of college, we're working in a whole other field. It has nothing to do with what we went to school for. Still paying student loans 10 years later for something that we don't even do no more. Right? Because we were always taught, be whatever you want to be. Be whatever you want to be. But sometimes, which I think is good, but I think we gotta harmonize that with God told Jeremiah, listen, before you formed in the belly of your mama, I knew you. I ordained you to be a prophet of the nation. So in many ways, Jeremiah, you can't be whatever you want to be. Jeremiah, okay, maybe you want to be a singer. Or Jeremiah, you want to be a basketball player. And what if Jeremiah's parents? Jeremiah, you can be whatever you want to be. If you believe, you work hard, you can be. So on one hand, Jeremiah, don't let your Jewish ancestry, don't let how the Egyptians see you, how the Assyrians see you, don't let how the Babylonians see you stop you from holding. Whatever you want to be, make your mind up and work hard, you can be it. Oh, that's good, Jeremiah. So you're working hard based upon what they told you, what they suggested. But Jeremiah, before you got here, matter of fact, before your mama got here, before you ever formed, God said you were ordained and sanctified to be a prophet. So what happens when Jeremiah is caught in between those realities of trying to be whatever he want to be, because he's a Jew, and fulfill his purpose? But then on this side, God says, I have already ordained and sanctified you to be a prophet of the nations. So Jeremiah, you can go and do all these majors, all these jobs, all these careers, all these resumes, but ain't no blessing on these things. The blessing in your life is only going to come when you line up and submit to my plan. So Jeremiah, it's not about your positions and your passions. It's about what I planned. And a lot of times in our lives, brothers and sisters, I think that we haven't been taught that enough. That I need to submit to what God, take up my cross and follow him. I hope I'm making sense. So don't just tell your young people, your grandkids, and your kids, and the young people in the church, be whatever you want to be. We also got to ask ourselves the question, okay, I was born with a purpose. So what if what I want to be and trying to study and trying to learn, what if I'm trying to do all these things and they have nothing to do with the cross and the plan that God has for my life? And until I submit to that, so I think we got to find a better way to balance this thing, to tell our kids, tell them to believe, tell them to work hard. It's like this, Stephanie and Tina. It's like this. You know, just because just because somebody said, I want to be a singer. We've seen it a lot. You ever seen people go on American Idol auditions? We got this show Sunday Best. They have Sunday Best here in Atlanta. You know, Kurt Franklin hosted, and they had auditions at our church every year, right? And back in the day, they have, when they were advertising for several days, people would stay outside all night long in the cold to audition. And I went in a couple of preliminary ones. I was a judge a couple times. I'm like, why in the world are y'all in this room? You mean to tell me y'all stood outside all night in the cold waiting to come and hear the audition? And this is what, because somebody told them you can be whatever you want to be. But God didn't gift you to do this. See, let me tell you something. You could have taken voice lessons from Aretha Franklin 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But if that's not what God gifted you to do, voice lessons ain't gonna help you. You know, I was a basketball player. I could shoot basketball. I was an athlete. I was a good athlete. But I don't care how many Air Jordans I bought. I want to be like Mike. I could have practiced basketball for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Guess what? I would never be 6. I would only be 6'2". I'd never be 6'6". I could practice. I could jump all day long. Guess what? I would never have a 48-inch vertical leap by Michael Jordan. You know why? Because I wasn't born to be a professional basketball player. I don't care how hard I practice. Some folks don't have the coordination, the gift. It wasn't what you were born to be. And what we do is we want to chase after what we want, our dreams and all these things we want to be. But Jesus said, you're going to come after me. You got to, first of all, deny yourself because it ain't about you. Lord, I hope I'm making sense. And I learned in my life, and here's what I know. I know I was put on earth to bring a message of hope. Now I know I was put on earth to bring hope to the world. I was put on earth with a message of hope. I was put on the earth to bring inspiration and point people to Jesus, right? And give them hope through Jesus. Preaching is a gift. Media are gifts. Singing are gifts. Those are gifts that God gave me to help me fulfill my purpose. But if I don't operate in my purpose, I'll never be blessed until I submit to that will. Let me keep going. I hope I'm making sense. So somebody who's watching me now, don't just tell your kids you can be what you want to be. Don't. And for you, I said, what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I can't tell how many times. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know. Well, maybe that's the problem. That we always talk about what I want to do with my life, and we never ask God, what do I need to submit to that you want me to do with my life? We read these books. We find out what the jobs are paying, what jobs have marketability, how I'm gonna make 6 figures, how I can make some money. But if I do all that and I have not submitted myself to God's plan for my life, how successful is that? It won't be, because God is only obligated to bless his will. The safety is in his will. The favor is in his will, not in what I want. Lord have mercy. Let me keep going. So here's what Jesus said. Let me give you a couple things. I'm over my time because y'all don't like that. I see y'all done logged off already. Y'all ain't talking now. Because some of y'all, you've been denying yourself. Stop denying yourself and start denying yourself. So if I'm going to come after him to be his learner and his follower, the first thing I got to do is deny myself. Y'all forgive me for saying, I got to deny myself. I gotta say, okay, Lord, I gotta move myself out of the equation.
And that's hard for us to do because we always taught, look out for self. First law of nature, self-preservation. If you don't look out for you, who else gonna look out for you? Take care of yourself. The greatest love of all, learn to love yourself. But look out for you, baby. And so we come into even God, in that relationship. You, great, love me. What have you done for me lately? So we got this whole mentality, and we ain't denying ourselves. You're denying yourself. You're indulging, but you're not denying yourself, which is the reluctance. And so I think it's just so, let me get to it. Now, so he says deny yourself. So he calls us, let me give you 5 points, I'm gonna stop. So he calls us to self-denial without self-hatred. Woo, that's good. So just because I deny myself does not mean I hate myself. Right? So my attitude toward God is one of self-denial. But that's 1A. That's what the Lord said about submission. He calls us to self-denial. I hope you got the outline. He calls us to self-denial without self-hatred. So just because I deny myself does not mean I hate myself. No. I don't hate myself. Jonah didn't hate himself when he went to Nineveh. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh because he hated the Ninevites. He hated how the Ninevites had treated the Israelites. So Jonah hated the assignment. Okay? Jonah had problems with the demographics. Jonah had problems not with his essence, but who he is seen as his perennial enemies. So Jonah, just because God gives you the assignment does not mean that you're going to say yes, that you're going to like it. Some things God has told me to do, I didn't like them. Liking the assignment doesn't mean I don't like me. But it's me being so interwoven with him and being in communion with God that I say, God, I trust your will over mine, even if it doesn't make sense. Even if it's something that my flesh doesn't gravitate. I want to go to Denny's and not deny myself. I want to deny myself and not deny myself. I want to get a gram slam from Denny. I don't want to deny myself, which is fasting. So you deny yourself, you get a gram slam. You deny yourself, you got to turn that plate down. We got to start denying ourselves rather than denying ourselves. I'm self-denial without self-hatred. My God. And that's so important because we got so many other folks who hate us. And I hate when African Americans, this whole other lesson, I want to get on my soapbox, but I hate it when we start seeing ourselves through the lenses of the oppressors. And now we start talking like them and looking at ourselves like they look at us. Now we want to please and appease them. My God, the devil is a lie. No, in this day and time, love who you are. African American, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You got a lot of self-hating blacks, self-hating Latinos, bleaching our skin and cutting our noses off because we don't fit their picture. I'm gonna get up. Let me stay focused. Listen, when God made you black, you be thankful you're black. Huh? Are y'all listening to me here? You ain't gotta bleach your skin, you ain't gotta cut your nose off. Are you cutting everything off God gave you? Y'all listen to me here. Even in church, the last 20, 30 years, we spent so much time trying to sound white. Even our music. And don't get me wrong, I love all drama. I'm a musician. I love every genre. I love classical. I sing Italian. I went to college on a music scholarship. I sang in the Glee Club. Card on your bed. All that. I love music, right? But even as a musician, there's some things that God gave us that's unique to us as African Americans. And we spend our time too many of us trying to sound like them, and they trying to sound like us. You know what I mean? So we got to stop hating ourselves. Many of us cutting our lips off, trying to pick their picture of Madison Avenue. While we cutting our lips off, they going to the store and gluing lips on. Huh? While we going cutting our hips off, they going and getting injection to put some in. Stop hating yourself. We got to stop hating ourselves, okay? So I don't know how I got there, but I just want to say that. Lord have mercy. You starving yourself. Because all the models you see in Cosmopolitan magazine are size 2, size 4. Are you kidding me? Look at your grandmama. Look at your great grandmama. Huh? Girl, you were 14. Guess what? And be the sexiest Health is 14. Are you listening? Stop hating yourself, trying to fit that stuff. You ain't gonna never be that. Your structure. You weren't made that way. Be thankful for who you are. Are you listening to what I'm trying to say? I'm gonna try to stop hating yourself. And so I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. My God, thank him for what he gave you. Hmm? And he gonna send you, and he gonna send you, and he gonna send you a man. Don't want nobody looking like this. All them hips and curves you trying to cut down and starve yourself, baby. Be healthy. My God. Stop hating yourself. My God. Just say I'm thick fine. For his glory. He made me thick fine. Yes, Lord. Big bone. And be the baddest big bone healthy you can be. But stop hating yourself, trying to fit what somebody's trying to. All right, let me get back to my list. I don't know how I got to that point. I don't know who that's for. Stop hating yourself. Be who God wants you to be. Huh? How God made you. All right? So self-denial without self-hatred. Self-denial without self-hatred. Am I making sense? All right, I know it's fine. I'm being silly. I hope. All right? Makes sense? Self-denial without self-hatred. Yeah, stop denying yourself. Yeah, all right. Let me keep going. I'm being too. All right. Here's another thing. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go and finish this. Self-denial does not mean the loss of our identity. I just said that. That's the point I was just trying to make. I really got to hit myself. So when I deny myself, I don't lose who I am, right? We don't lose our identity. Denying yourself does not. Jesus had to deny himself, right? Jesus had to deny himself in Matthew chapter 4. He was led of the Spirit to the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights. He was hungry. The enemy tried to get him to eat, turn his stone. But here's the thing about it. But he had his identity because God had just told him, you're my beloved son in whom I will please. And the devil said, if you be the son of God. Because he's trying to make him deny his identity. Jesus said, wait a minute, I have to prove to you I'm the son of God. I know I'm the son of God. So because I'm denying myself does not mean I'm denying my identity. I know I'm the son of God. Just because I'm struggling, just because I'm hungry, just because it's tough, does not change my identity. That's a good lesson for somebody right there. All right? So I'm going to finish number one. I'll pick this up next week. So self-denial is not the same thing as self-contempt. So stop being self-contemptuous. You know that we got this whole badge of honor, this whole thing of, now this is a good word for African Americans too. Because living in America, try to make it have a self-hatred, no. You got to be in self-contempt. Stop being, holding yourself in contempt. My God, because you deny yourself. It means I trust God's plan for my life. And it doesn't put me in bondage. It frees me up because I say yes to the will of God. And it makes me more dependent on the voice of God because now I'm following. So he calls it self-denial without self-hatred. Self-denial does not mean the loss of identity. Self-denial is not the same thing as self-contempt. Self-denial and self-love are not in conflict. So because I deny myself does not mean I don't love myself. So when Jesus said, not my will, but your will be done, he's not saying I don't love me. He still loves himself. But what he said is I love myself enough to know that my assignment, I love myself. But I still I can say yes to you and no to me. And saying no to me does not mean I don't love me. Saying no to my will does not mean that I don't love myself. It means I trust God's will for my life much greater than I trust myself. Because the heart is so wicked, and I know in life that if I go by what I want, I can easily mess it up. So the love for me is in saying yes to him. Because here's the thing. So many times in our lives, we messed stuff up because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know who to let in our life. We see through a glass darkly. We made decisions based on what we wanted and got hurt and broken. So when I deny myself to say yes to him, that's really because I love myself. Because I love myself too much to keep letting me put myself in harm's way. So sometimes the love for me is in my denial of me. Because if I don't deny me, I'll end up brokenhearted, broke, busted, disgusted, bad decisions. Because we know how to mess things up. We know how to let the wrong people in our lives. We know how to make bad decisions. So self-love should be, Lord, I deny myself because I love me enough to trust me with you. And I know you love me. And because you love me, you're going to lead me the right way. All right. So self-denial and self-love are not in conflict. Lastly, self-denial means the freedom to give way to others. Now, not myself. I can step back and give way to others. Not about me. Not about me. I'm going to close here. But I want to get back to that point about Jeremiah, denying self, and about not being what you want to be. See, let me tell you something. Listen to me carefully. I want you to hear me carefully. Hear my heart. Before Jeremiah, before his parents came together, here's what God said to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1 and 5. Jeremiah, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. So before you had a birth date, before your parents came together, okay, I knew you in spirit. You were with me in heaven in spirit form. I knew you. I knew you. I knew you in spirit, Jeremiah. I knew you. Before your parents came together, I knew you. Okay? I knew you in spirit. I knew your spirit. I knew you in heaven. I ordained you in heaven. I sanctified you in heaven before you came. Okay? So what I did, Jeremiah, because I had your spirit in heaven, I let your parents come together to form your body. Right? Your mom and daddy got together, and 9 months later you came out. When you came out, the body, as a baby, the physical, the body, I took the spirit that was in heaven that I knew and put that spirit that I knew in heaven and put it in the body that came out your mama's womb. So when your body came out, I put the spirit that was in heaven in that body. I put you on earth for one reason, not to be a singer, not to be a teacher, not to be an athlete, not to be a Levite, to be a prophet. And so Jeremiah, I knew you before you knew you. Before your mama knew you, I knew you in spirit. And I put you on earth because I knew you. And I put you on earth to carry out what I knew about you in heaven, which is to prophesy. And when I put you on earth, I want you to submit yourself to what I knew about you in heaven. Now here's the reality, Jeremiah. Now, Jeremiah, one day, you're going to come back to heaven when it's all said and done. Your spirit is going to come back to heaven. When you die, that spirit come back to heaven, your body going to the earth, Jeremiah. And Jeremiah, when you come back to heaven, I'm looking for the you that I knew before I sent you. The you that I knew in heaven before I put you down and sent you and put you in, that's the you I'm looking. So when you come back to heaven to try to get back into heaven, I'm looking for the you that I knew before I sent you. And Jeremiah, if you come back to heaven and you didn't submit to what I knew about you before I sent you, when you come back, I'm looking for you. And if you come back looking different from the you that I knew before I sent you, Jeremiah, I'm going to say to you, depart from me, because I never knew you. This ain't the you that I knew before I sent you. Something happened when you got down there, Jeremiah. You start watching TV, reading magazines, letting your mama tell you what you want to be, and something happened. And so because I gave you free will, you shifted. You did something else with the time I gave you on earth. You did not do what I sent you to do before I knew you. And if you come back up here looking like anything other than what I knew before I sent you, then I'm going to say to you, depart from me, because I never knew you. My question to you today, before we were sent to earth, God knew us. We were sanctified and ordained with a purpose. And God put us in time to carry out what he knew about us in the spirit before he sent us to be in our mother's wombs. Before he put that spirit in our mother's, in that child that came out the mother. The question I want to ask you, when we go back to heaven, Will God know us? Will God see us as the same you that he knew before he sent you? Or will God say to us, depart from me? Because this ain't the new you. This ain't the you that I knew before I sent you. And so, brothers and sisters, I want to encourage us all that we got to say yes, Lord. Lord, reveal to me. Help me to take up my cross and submit and deny myself and not be so much about what I want. Because I want to go back to be, when I give an account, I want to be able to say, you sent me down here to do this. And everything you sent me to do, I did it. I submitted myself to it. Even if I didn't like it, I did it. Because I want to be the you that you knew before you sent me to carry out what you ordained me to do. And that takes submitting to the will of God. I love myself. I don't have self-contempt. Self-denial is not self-hate. And sometimes I got to give way to others. Because all I'm trying to do is carry out what he sent me to do before I ever knew what he'd already called me to do. So yes, Lord. So God wants a yes. Yes to his will. Yes to it. And I'll say yes, Lord, to your will and to your way. I'll say yes, Lord. I trust you and obey. When your spirit speaks to me with my whole heart, I'll agree. And my answer will be yes. Lord, yes. Submit to his will. Submit to his way. Say, God, whatever you want me to do, just be clear. Just speak. Just show me. Speak to me. Just speak to me. Just show me. Lord, help me to sanitize my will by prioritizing your word. Because if I prioritize your word, it'll sanitize my will. When I go back to heaven, God's going to ask me a question. Are you the you that I knew before I sent you? Did you accomplish down there what I'd already spoke to your spirit up there? And all I want to hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Because you submitted, because you served, you've been faithful over a few things. Come on up, and I'll make you ruler. So it's not all about the money you make, not all about the title. It's about, will you be the you that he knew before he sent you? Or will you allow down here to change you into some other than what he sent for you to be? You can make $1 million a year and still not be the you that he knew before he sent you. You can make $1 million and be miserable because you're doing everything else except submitting to what the peace comes. The peace comes when you know that I'm carrying out on earth what he told my spirit to do in heaven. And I want to be the you that you knew before you sent me to do what you told the you to do. If I can do that, then my life would have meaning and purpose. So stop trying to be what you want to be. Surrender that and say, God, I submit. Show me clearly. Just speak. Just, Lord, make it so clear. And if I get clear on what you want me to submit to, make it clear. And then show me how to carry it out. I wish I could see your faces because I don't know if this lesson came across. I wish I could see y'all faces, or I wish you could see this little heart. Because I tried my best to make that part make sense. I'm gonna pick this up next week because I'm gonna go deeper next week. I'm gonna go much deeper next week. But just give God a yes. God wants your yes. God wants your yes. That's right. Type in yes, Lord. Just that's it. Just yes, Lord. Just yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. That's right, Tina. Just yes, Lord. I want to hear him say yes, Lord. Thank you. God bless you. Yes. Let me pray with you right quick. Father, I thank you for those who tuned in today. And this lesson on submission is not easy, but help us to deny ourselves, take up our crosses, and follow you. Lord, would you be so clear would you speak to us as clearly as you spoke to Jeremiah? Because you told Jeremiah what you wanted him to do. You said, before you were formed in the belly, I knew you, I ordained you, I sanctified you to be a prophet to the nations. His purpose was so clear. Many of us would say yes if we had the clarity. So would you remove the distractions? Many of us would see the vision, but maybe 2020 has been about stripping the things that we've placed in our vision. So remove the cataracts, perform spiritual LASIK surgery, and allow us to see as clearly as Jeremiah saw. So even when things get rough and tough, we still can carry out and submit to your plan for our lives. We give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen, amen. I hope you were blessed today. I hope you got something out of the lesson. I hope it made sense to you. I did my best to make it clear. I don't like this. I don't feel good right now because I don't know if it connected with you or not. Now, if I can see your faces, I know I said a lot right there, but I trust that I trust that God knows my heart, and I trust that the seeds that were planted, I hope you got clarity on it. And I want you to listen to this over and over again, and just say yes, Lord. Just say yes, Lord. Just say yes, Lord. Listen, we got to go. Listen, before we go, a couple things I want you to do for me right quickly before we go. My heart is grieved for our teachers and our students and our principals and our paraprofessionals. My heart is grieved. Thank you. Yeah, yes, Lord. That's it. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. And I'm very grieved because I believe teaching is a calling. I believe God. Some of you who are teachers, before God sent you, He sent you to teach. And so I want you to pray for teachers. I want you to, if you have a prayer request, that's right. I know what you mean, James. It's convicting me too. If you have a prayer request, I want you to get your phone or your iPad, and you can type the word prayer, and you can send the word prayer to this number, 678-201-1351. Hallelujah. Thank y'all for your comments. That makes me feel better. Thank you for your comments. I feel better. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. I want you to type the keyword prayer to the number 678-201-1351. If you know a teacher, principal, counselor, paraprofessional, a student, administrator, I want you to send that name. Type the word prayer, 678-201-1351. I just feel led to pray for our teachers and our students for the next couple of weeks. 678-201-1351. And virally, if you want to type the name in while y'all praying, if you're a school teacher, you want to ask for prayer within your viral community now, whether it be Periscope or Twitter Periscope or Facebook or YouTube. If you're a teacher, you can type their name in now, and maybe you can even pray in that community. But these come to my prayer team when you get your phone and send it to this 678-201-1351. That comes to us directly, and we submit those, and maybe I can get the team to go back through the comments, but this goes directly to us. We put on our prayer list. Make sure you do that. All right. Secondly, some of you are watching, and maybe you want to connect with our church. I've been blown away as to the people who unite with our church all over the world, really. And I think COVID has kind of shifted everything. We've been talking about e-church for a long time, but now everything is online. Our discipleship class is going to be online. Worship is online. Bible study is online. And so this is going to be a wave of the future for many people. Education is now online, and so this is a new wave. So we're not bound by brick and mortar anymore. So if you want to come connect with our church, you can connect now. You can type the keyword connect to 678-201-1351. As a matter of fact, our new member orientation classes start this Saturday online. So you can connect today and take your new member classes this Saturday online. And so we're going to have online new member classes. This is coming Saturday, 25th. So if you so desire, you can connect that word. You can type the word connect to 678-201-1351. Thirdly, if you want to be saved and accept Jesus Christ as your Lord, it's just surrender. It's just surrender. Give it to Him. Bible says that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe God and raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. It's invite him into your heart. Lord, I believe. Lord, I'm a sinner. And Jesus, I know you came to die on the cross for my sins. I accept you now as the Lord of my life. It's that simple. ABC. Admit you're a sinner. Be believe in Jesus Christ. Seek and confess him as Lord. If you want to accept Christ and to know that you will be with him one day in heaven, type the keyword salvation. You can type the word salvation to the same number, 678-201-1351. Salvation. Get your phone. Type salvation. 60678-201-1351. Again, salvation. 678-201-1351. You type that in, somebody's going to go through the plan of salvation, and you can be sure of your salvation right now. So prayer, connect, salvation. Those are available for you right now. 678-201-1351. And lastly, we only ask you to give twice a week, as we have always done on Sundays and Wednesdays. If we have worship on Sunday, we have a public offering. On Wednesdays, we have a public offering. Our ministry is trying to do a lot of things through Hope TV. We're trying to get more content producers. It takes a lot to do this. And not just that, managed staff. We're still feeding thousands of families. We still have a nonprofit, Tabitha's House, that supports young girls who were taken out of child sex trafficking. We have 2 residences in Atlanta that we house young girls who were taken out of child sex trafficking. We have 2, one of the only churches in the whole nation that owns property that's dealing with child sex trafficking. We have a counseling center called Haven House Counseling Center that's operational right now. And so we're doing a lot for ministry. As you can see, some of you, we're very involved in the community. We're building a church in East Africa, in Rwanda. We've got a church there called the House of Hope. We have a school there with 700 students. We're doing human trafficking programs in East Africa as well. All that's going on, even during COVID-19. And I'm grateful to God for it. And we're also, in our Mission 2020, doing some major capital improvements on our campus as we speak. So a lot is going on. So if you want to be a blessing and give, there are 4 ways you can give. First of all, you get your phone and you can text HOHAT, that's House of Hope Atlanta tithe, to 678-201-1351. If you're a member of the church, but you want to give an offering, you may want to give $10, $20. You've been blessed by the ministry, $5. This ministry blessed me. You can get your phone and you can text 678-201-1351, HOHAO, give an offering. Or if it's easier for you, you have Cash App and you want to be a blessing to the church, you can get your phone right now, $HOHATL, and be a blessing. You know, if you go to the restaurant and you eat and the food is good, you pay for the bill and you give a tip. If you want to support what we're doing, it's no pressure, but if you want to be able to, you got $5, $10 you want to share, you know, and you've been blessed by the Hope TV, been blessed by the ministry while you're home, and you want to give, get your phone and do so. It certainly will. It will help us. No amount too large, certainly no amount too small. So you can give by text to give, you can give by Cash App. You also, if you're on the website, if you're watching through the website right now, while you're watching, you can go to the website, houseofhopeatl.com, www.houseofhopeatl.com, and you can give right now while you're watching it on the website. And then lastly, if you want to send it through the mail, some of you still write checks like me. We have a P.O. box. You can send your offerings through the P.O. box. Right now, the information is on the screen. House of Hope, P.O. Box 361499, Decatur, Georgia 30036. So those are the 4 ways you can give. You can give by text to give, 678-201-1351, Cash App, House of Hope website, and you can give by mailing to our P.O. Box. So certainly I'm appreciative to all you're doing. Listen, I got to let you go, but I'll say yes, Lord, yes, to your will and to your way. I'll say yes, Lord, yes, I'll trust you and obey. When your spirit speaks to me, with my whole heart I'll agree. And my answer will be yes, Lord, yes. Submit, surrender to him. My friends, I gotta leave you now. But as always, remember this. If you'll be good to God, God will be good to you. Give me a yes. Until next time. Peace.
Hi, family. It's me, Crystal Jakes. I am so glad you tuned in today to get updated on what's going on here at the House of Hope. Last week, Corey told you about the special 3-day event for our youth. Day 1 is our back to school drive. Day 2 is the virtual back to school service. And day 3 is the morning back to school prayer. Now, for our back to school drive, we need you to donate the items on the screen so that our youth will be equipped to learn. While you're in a donating mood, please donate non-perishable food items to our outreach ministry so that they can continue our community grocery giveaways. During this crisis and even before, we've been able to feed thousands of families. Remember, it's a blessing to be a blessing. We want to thank you for your donations to Mission 2020. We are up to phase 7 of renovations and upgrades to our campus. Check out these amazing pictures. Family, we want you to know that Celebrate Recovery support is available to assist persons who have hurts, habits, and hang-ups. To get assistance, simply send an email to the email address on the screen. Last Tuesday, Miss Maddie Brooks celebrated her 100th birthday. Now that is awesome. But today at 2:30, we're going to do a drive-by parade to wave and drop off any flowers or cards you may have. Details are on the screen if you'd like to participate. Now keep in mind, it's a drive-by. Do not get out of your cars. Please and thank you. Well, that's all the time I have for today, but I'll be back to make sure you're informed. Until next time, remember, life with God is better in every way, every day. Be blessed. Happy birthday, Miss Maddie.
11 o'clock on Sunday morning, when thousands of Christians all over the United States stand to sing "In Christ There Is No East or West," we stand in the most segregated hour of America.
We're awakening to the fact that the accomplishments of the civil rights movement were a beginning, not an end.
We should be able to say, this is where I have sinned against my brother, against my sister.
I think this whole element of racism is a reality of life. Being racist is something we need to change.
Even though the church in many times has been complicit in the racial divide, let's be honest about that. The church is the way back.